educated unemployment, persistent wage gaps, heavy unpaid care burdens, and continuing gender based violence. This contradiction, that is empowered but not fully employed, defines Kerala's gender development paradox. Demographic aging, migration, and technological change have further implications for the landscape of gender and development. Regarding the employment trends, which is one of the greater concern of our development, female workforce participation has improved significantly in recent years, rising from about 20% in 2018-19 to nearly 30% in 2023-24. Kerala performs better than the national average in regular and salaried employment and organized sector participation. However, wage gaps remain wide, educated unemployment is high, and many women remain concentrated in informal sectors. Migration has become increasingly feminized, and it is a positive trend in the state, with highly educated women, particularly nurses and other professionals, migrating abroad. And women's participation in student migration for seeking higher education is nearing to 50%. That gender gap is very narrow now. And regarding the policy innovations, Kerala pioneered decentralized planning with gender integration, launched Kudumbasri as a large-scale women's collective for livelihoods, institutionalized gender budgeting, and strengthened women-focused departments and financial institutions. Employment guarantee schemes and entrepreneurship initiatives have shifted policy from welfare orientation towards economic empowerment. And the knowledge economy transition. The state promotes digital employment, skilling, and innovation. Women constitute a significant share of beneficiaries in technology and skill programs. The key challenge is translating participation into upward mobility and leadership positions. Regarding social protection, Kerala runs targeted schemes for widows, single mothers, women with disabilities, disaster affected women, and marginalized communities. Support includes shelter, livelihood grants, educational assistance, pensions, and climate resilient measures. However, gender mainstreaming in disaster preparedness is an important concern that needs strengthening. Transgender inclusion. Kerala was the first Indian state to adopt a transgender policy in 2015. Initiatives include identity recognition, financial assistance for gender affirming procedures, scholarships, housing support, and self employment schemes are there. Stigma and safety concerns continue to limit full inclusion, but it was vastly changed now. Gender budgeting. Kerala has institutionalized gender budgeting. The share of gender budget has improved from 11.40% in 27-18 to 22% in the current budget for women-focused programs. This year, the gender budget 26-27 has an allocation of 5,586.99 crores, and it constitutes 22% of the total plan outlay, excluding the allocation of LSGIs. Out of that, the LSGIs have 10% of mandatory allocations for the women component plan projects. The pre-budget reviews and cross-departmental coordination strengthen accountability and policy impact in gender budgeting. Achieving the vision of Navakeralam requires expanding quality employment, strengthening the care economy, improving social protection, combating gender-based violence, and ensuring women's leadership in knowledge economy. These are the major concerns we have to work on, and we expect the experiences and knowledge of the panels who are here. They will share the best practices and their experience in this regard. The conference will situate gender as a foundational dimension of development and will explore pathways through which Kerala can deepen gender justice as it moves toward its next developmental milestone. This session aims to bring together scholars, policymakers, practitioners, and activists to reflect critically on Kerala's experience on gender and development. So I expect we have a very rich panel representing different fields of gender and development, and they will bring their experience, knowledge, and wisdom and passion for towards this discussion. I welcome once again all, and I request to start with Professor Nitya Rao.
Thank you so much, Minnie, and good afternoon to everybody. It's really nice to be here and a real honor to be speaking at this event. So I've just prepared a few slides to help me talk through some of the thoughts we have, and of course, as you've already given some background to. Next slide, please. Where is it? This. Which one? No.
This is the file, this is back.
Sorry about that. So I think we all know that Kerala is like number one in India in terms of all development indicators. And it's doing also quite well on gender equality, which is the fifth bar, the SDG goal 5. But this is lower compared to other things. I think there are only two other indicators which is in yellow, that is life underwater and responsible production and consumption, where the yellow bars basically show that there's no data. So from the ones for which there is data, gender equality is a little bit on the lower side. I think the trends are in the right direction when we see what has changed. But I think key elements of the goal 5 on gender equality, and also key elements for gender equality itself, is labor, access to resources, decision making, and of course bodily integrity or freedom from violence against women. And each of these, we see, this is from the Keela fact sheet on the SDGs, that while Kerala does much better than other states of the country, but here also there is an earning gap or a wage gap between men and women, and that was according to the data, the state data, it is 0.84. Of course, it's likely to be different across sectors and so on. So these data sets aggregate figures, but when we go into particular sectors, particular work patterns, there might be more or less differences. In terms of resource control, I think female operated land holdings, which was very, very low at 1.20 in 2018, has quite remarkably improved to over 22%, almost 23% in 2021. And again, I don't know whether this is leased in land through Kudumbashri and other things, or whether this is actually women's ownership of land. Anyway, this is part of operational holdings. So women are now able to operate 23% of the holdings. But having said that, and I'll come to that a little bit, that the proportion of women engaged in farming and agriculture is much higher. So while this is not a bad number, it's still disproportionate. Low compared to women's actual participation. I think decision making is an interesting area, because here in Kerala, the panchayats have 50% reservation, lot of very good programs like Kudumbashri and others, which have very good participation of women. But when we go up the decision making ladder, the participation falls. So Keela figures itself shows that in assembly it's only 5.71%, and I think in parliament now maybe it's only 1 or 2 out of 20 representatives from Kerala who are women. And finally, the issue of violence. I think, the figures are high in Kerala, and the trend again between 2018 to 21 shows that the violence against women has gone up. But this can be for multiple reasons. One is that more women are educated and they're reporting violence. But it could also be some combination of more reporting and more violence. In many places, we find that violence is actually a backlash to women's empowerment. So the more successful you are with empowerment, there are various traditional and other forces which kind of try to object or create barriers in that process. So, I think I just want to just take a step away from Kerala to some of the work I have been doing in Odisha, particularly with women farmers. As I mentioned, some of this I wanted just as an example to focus on women farmers who, of course, face a lot of constraint, and partly also because this year, 2026, has been announced as the International Year of Women Farmers. So, globally, there is a lot of attention on women farmers, and the reason is that they are majority of farmers, especially in Asia and Africa, are women, because men are migrating, they are moving to other kinds of jobs, but there is still a huge gap in terms of women's access to resources, in terms of the invisibility of their contributions, the knowledge, the non-recognition of women's knowledges, and so on. And this is something which I found in my own research in Odisha. It's a tribal belt of Koraput. Of course, climate is another big issue, that with climate stress, rainfall variability, soil erosion, water runoffs, people have also changed land use patterns. I mentioned this in the context of saying that not enough women have access to or control over land. Because in this context, what happens is that the man, as the landowner, often takes a decision to lease out the land, or in the case of Koraput, to give it to eucalyptus, to paper industry for eucalyptus plantations. These were the lands which women used to cultivate for millets, for vegetables, for pulses, and so on. So now they have lost the dietary diversity. They have lost control over the cropping pattern. Plus, eucalyptus plantations has further implications on water. It takes away a lot of the water and soil fertility. So even in the lowlands, there is a problem in terms of productivity and so on. So women are losing control over decision making. And again, in this area, we find that in harder and harder conditions, women are doing almost 80% of the agricultural labor. But also with the context of high male out migration, women are also doing most of the domestic and care work. What I found in my time use study was that during these peak seasons of planting and harvesting, women are busy with the fields and they have very little time to cook and feed, which then leads to related problems like child undernutrition. So I think it's kind of a consequential effect of that. And of course, our extension services, unfortunately, are not really still, because of the problem of land ownership, are not really seeing women as farmers. So they're not really talking to what are your needs, what are the priorities, what are the crops you grow, what kind of information you need. And I think this is getting even more difficult with the digitalization. I think Kerala is one of the better states where women are more educated and can handle digital technologies. But in other states, we are finding that this is actually increasing the divide in terms of the needs and priorities of those who are farming on the ground and this. So a recent policy I think is interesting. In the case of Odisha, they have very recently announced a gender responsive cell within the agriculture ministry to look at all the schemes to see how they can make it more gender responsive. The second one is interesting. I'm on that committee actually set up by the agricultural engineering department of the Ministry of Agriculture in Odisha, where they are developing a SOP for the development of gender responsive tools and technologies, which can be then included in the list of accredited tools and technologies which can receive subsidies, especially for SC, ST and marginal. And the third thing that they have announced, which is I think very good, is registration of women as farmers through the process of agri-stack at the national level is more complicated because it needs land holding to prove that you are a farmer. But I think different state governments do have the facility, through panchayats especially, to give some kind of a registration or an identity, which will then entitle these women to other resources, credit, and other kinds of things. So I think that is something for Kerala probably will be very useful because your panchayats are very strong, and maybe this is something that can be easily taken up. So the minister already mentioned gender justice, so I won't go into it. But I think taking for Kerala this gender justice lens, if you're already taking it, I think it's excellent. But to really take it and address each of the three dimensions of gender justice, one is the recognition of where is the problem, who's facing the problem, and so on. In a state like Kerala, I think targeting like migrant workers with whom I have been working now don't have much facilities. So really seeing where the problem is and then dealing with that, and then targeting the resource distribution also to those groups. And I think we have to address the problem of voice and representation at different levels. It comes up to the panchayat level and then doesn't go beyond that. So this, I think at the panchayat level, as I said, I think we have enough evidence that Kerala is actually taking a gender justice approach. As the minister said just before me, I think in the panchayats there is representation and voice. There are programs like Kudumbashri and others at the panchayat level, which actually are looking at redistribution of resources. I know that land through leasing mainly, and there was an idea of land banks and so on, credit through the JLGs and so on, and also, of course, recognize women's contributions to the productive economy. As I said, what needs really further strengthening is that one is, I think, though the minister did mention unpaid care work, I think that again, there are certain groups like migrant workers and so on who still don't have access to, or coastal, to creche facilities, care facilities, and so on. So I think little bit maybe of balancing is needed, and also, of course, differences amongst women belonging to different social groups. This was just a study that we had done with MSSRF on the impact of climate on different kinds of risks. The first map shows on intimate partner violence, and the second on recommended antenatal care. And I think if you will see in the case of intimate partner violence, I think the evidence is patchy. But if we look at the second map on antenatal care, I think we have a lot to learn. Rest of the country has a lot to learn from Kerala, because despite high exposure to various hydrometeorological disasters, actually the dropout from antenatal care is very low. So there is something that is really going right in terms of the public health system and the health provisioning in terms of reproductive health, that they are able to cope with these. And I think rest of the country, especially the red patches that you see, are those which have high exposure, but they're really not able to cope with some of these disasters. How many more minutes, Mini? Few more minutes? Three. Okay, 5. So I think this point I have just made, that these vulnerabilities, what we call as intersectional, or they are really, it depends. I think particularly in the case of Kerala, or because we have already a high starting point, I think in the next 5 years in the vision, Kerala really needs to identify who are the most critical. Are they, like in Kudumbashri in Wayanad, I was doing a small study. I saw that, women, especially with young children, amongst the tribes, they are not able to participate that much in the Krishi groups, and partly because of the labor rotation. With the young child, they are not able to manage. And in some of these tribal areas, the childcare facility is not that well provided. So I think maybe for Kerala, it's very important now to reach that last mile, to do a more specific targeting on those who are falling behind. The other issue I wanted to raise was about migration. And actually, it's unfortunate we don't have a session on migration, but there is a growing migration of women. I looked at the Kerala Migration Survey of 2023 done by Dr. Rajan and others, which shows that now female migrants from Kerala are 19% of total immigrants, and highly educated. More than 75% of them have degrees. And of the migrants, more than about half are in the labor force. And as Dr. George mentioned, the minister, that quite a lot are in education. I think you also mentioned, Mini, quite a lot are in education as well. It's also interesting that unlike the men, who 80% are going to the Gulf countries, women only 60% are going to Gulf countries. They are going to other countries where they are really looking for opportunities. So I think this is an area, especially women's workforce participation in terms of both out migration and what they are doing, what is happening, what is their remittances, are they coming back, are they remitting, that needs study. But also I think there is an issue of in-migrants. So Kerala also has a very large number of in-migrants coming from other states, and that is one group which I have been studying in many of the cities, that actually they really lack still access to, they get the wages. I think that's one good thing about Kerala, why migrants like to come to Kerala from northern states to fill up tasks, because they get the fair wages. But beyond that, other things like, education, health care, and so on is something that we need to look at. And this is, I think, more to raise a discussion that are young women rejecting marriage. So I haven't really seen data like from the NFHS or something like that, but a lot of newspaper articles and media reports about, high literacy rates, aspire to careers, economic independence, seek to move away from traditional roles, as we said, high awareness and reporting of domestic violence. And some reports suggest, I don't know, and these figures I can't vouch for because they are only media reports. I could not find in any research document that women's profiles on matrimonial websites have dropped by 57%, and also divorce petitions have increased by 40%. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think it's an area that why are women then, first of all, wanting to migrate out of Kerala, not wanting to marry? I mean, what is going on? Something, despite all the high education, health, everything, something obviously is not, is needs to be addressed. I think some factors which, again, from the literature and so on, which I could suggest is, patriarchy or patriarchal norms haven't really shifted. A lot of my young Kerala friends and students say that, there is a lot of barrier for them to still go out, to socialize, they can't drink in public, they can't dress in particular ways. So I don't know, again, these are just hearsay, but I think there is really something we need to look at here. There are also reports, I've seen some research studies that especially in northern Kerala, in Malappuram and so on, in the context of high male out migration, that women or girls are actually getting married at a lower age. So that could be a concerning trend. Male alcoholism, rising fear of gender violence, and perhaps the stereotyping of women in particular professions, because we looked also at the migration survey that majority of migrants who are in employment are from, I'll wind up, nursing and so on. Sorry. So just very quickly, I think the minister has already mentioned about knowledge. I think for Kerala, really with high literacy levels, the way to move forward to empower women is through, even within agriculture, by what we call as new skills, eco-technologies, resilient practices, regenerative farming practices. So there's whole sets of new technologies that can be used. I think there's a lot of talk on organic farming, on sustainable agriculture and so on, and some of these probably need to be taken into account. The other thing is really around the farmers' rights, and here women farmers, especially in tribal areas like Wayanad, the woman is from Wayanad, has tremendous amount of knowledge on yams, wild yams. She knows at least 19 local varieties, but we find less than 5 in the rural markets and none in the urban. So I think we are, if we don't really recognize the knowledge of these women, we might lose it. And finally, we need to look at this intersections of thing. I'll just conclude with just one point on the global policy, which is very contemporary, on the Belém in the COP 30. I think they came up with the 5 for the next 8 years, the gender action plan. And it's very interesting that this framework actually mentions many of the things that I've been talking about gender responsive, intersectionality, care, health, violence, finance, technology, capacity building, and so on. So Kerala that way has been good, because Kerala is one of the few states which responded to the ministry's request to have a gender inclusive state action plan for climate change. But even this could go a little bit further in terms of really giving women greater agency, seeing them as active agents of change. There are many other global frameworks, and I said this is the International Year of Women Farmers. It gives opportunity, I think, and also to unlock finance as well as mainstreaming gender and encouraging collective action to make food systems more inclusive. And that's really my final slide. I think it's nothing new for most of you. But I think it's very important that we follow these 5 principles at least. I think the 3 R's are quite well known in terms of recognize, redistribute, and representation and voice from the gender justice perspective. But there are a few more added, that is, reduce women's sole responsibility as carers by sharing the burden of domestic work, address some of these institutional norms, especially around decision making, and finally, I think, bring the learning from Kudumbashri and other such community-led collective empowerment programs that simultaneously address multiple domains of women's life, their livelihoods, political participation, as well as social norms. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nitya. It's just a very thought-provoking opening presentation. Now I request Dr. T.K. Anandi to speak about the Kerala's achievements on this gender development sector.
I connected it with them. Good afternoon, everybody. I need not repeat whatever has been mentioned here by the earlier speakers like Mini and Dr. Nitya. So I am going straight to the aging population because whatever you have achieved as social indicators, most of the social indicators are women friendly, as you all know. So I am not repeating it. The main problem that we face in the demography is aging population. And before that, I would like to say something regarding the gender budget which Mini has mentioned earlier. And our gender budgeting has started from 2008 onwards, and the connoisseur of gender budgeting is sitting right in front of us, Dr. Mriduleepan, who has given so much of strain, so much of energy, and made it possible to this. I mean, whatever amount she has mentioned, like 5,586 crores in the 26-27 budget. So I am not repeating whatever has been mentioned earlier. So aging population, it's a world issue. Every country in the world is facing it. The whole earth is getting aged, as we used to say. So the transition to a right-based elderly care model using India's first elderly commission, Kerala has introduced Kerala State Elderly Commission Act 2025, and now they are demanding a separate department for senior citizens, which has to be discussed anyhow. But still, Kerala now has Child Rights Commission, Women Commission, and also we have Senior Citizens Commission. Vision 2031 policy is focused on rehabilitation, legal aid for them, and intergenerational bonding is mandated by the senior citizen policy. A structural shift in work participation, which we have mentioned about work participation and migration, that has been connected here when Dr. Nitya was talking about. Work participation also has a big shift from agriculture to the knowledge economy. As we all know that, the economy decides what the work participation should be and what the work should be. So from agriculture to knowledge economy we have shifted, and also that reflects in our work participation rate also. Education employment correlation snapshot shows that, secondary educated, 28.5% of the secondary educated are in the retail shops, garment and MSMEs. And graduates and above IT and education, 42% are in IT and education professional services. And vocational training, 51.2%, which, they are ASHA workers, Anganwadis, technical MSMEs, and other Kudumbashree members also will come in that. So occasional training has been given, and also skillful work is being done by this 51.2%, we can say. Shifting the employment shows in this way, that is 8,840, 8 crores 84 lakhs are now in the other services compared to the agriculturist laborers, 9 lakhs and 14,000. And household industry is very, very less as far as Kerala is concerned. And 2005, it has increased. The details I will come to. MSME engine and entrepreneurial development, the year of enterprises, we can say that, more than 33% of women are in MSMEs. They are owning the enterprise. They are not only entrepreneurs, they are owning the industry also, enterprise also. Ownership share, women now own 33% of MSMEs in Kerala, a figure significantly higher than the national average of 20%. Institutional framework also, this ecosystem is supported by Kerala State Women Development Corporation, Kudumbashree, and also in Industries, Directorate of Industries and Commerce, which together provide financial inclusion and also skill training and market linkages. We are also giving financial management to Kudumbashree and also other women, who are managing this on enterprises. Government initiative soft loan scheme for women entrepreneurs. KSIDC is funding scheme up to 50 lakhs for women. And also this 50 lakhs is given only for those who are involved in machinery and equipment development. In that case, that means we are only giving the subsidy and other help or funding scheme to this 50 lakhs we are giving only for those who are ready to work on machines and also who are skilled. That also is a difference. Mission 1000 to uplift 1,000 MSMEs for women with incentives like capital investments and subsidies. Anganwadi workers, apart from this, we have a stabilized workforce, that is scheme workers. Anganwadi workers, 66 from 2010 to 2025, they have increased quite a lot. Midday meal schemes are also 13,453 are. We are maintaining it for the last 10 years. Psychosocial counselors also we have increased, and we are planning to increase more because in all the schools we have not yet appointed them. And ASHA workers are also increasing in number. MG and NREGA also, they are also maintaining the same number as 17,991. So altogether the scheme workers alone come to 1,24,000, 1.25, one can say. When we see the daily wage comparison, rural wages and India and Kerala difference we can see in this. Of course, everywhere like in India also the urban wages are much more. In Kerala it is rural wages are more than the urban wages. But in India, we can find that, the rural wages are less. But, Kerala is giving good wages. So, we can just imagine a thing, where in Kerala, this increases the standard of living. But apart from that, as far as Kerala is concerned, we are getting food, or, you are getting your food free of cost. You are getting your free rationing, including coconut oil and asafoetida, you are being given in the package. And you are getting free education, you are getting free health services, and now for the last 10 years we are getting free houses also. So actually it's not essential that one should go for a job. That is what the average, or one will go for a job only when the aspiration of this educated woman, she gets a job according to the aspiration of this educated woman. Otherwise, the standard of living is quite high because of the wages and also because of the, just because, she is staying in Kerala. So these facilities are being given. So naturally, that also may be one of the reasons why the work participation rate is slightly low. Educated, unemployed, we used to say. Educated are not getting a job according to their aspiration. Only when they get a job according to their aspiration, they will go for that job. That we are seeing in the Kerala society as such. And key training and support institutions, jurisdiction, we are giving lot of skill development like central government thing is there, Kerala case, through case we are giving training. Kile is also giving training, research and training, labor and allied projects. Startup Pension are also giving training. And yeah. The key challenges are that, Kerala women are not having land ownership, very low, in the sense, under 10% only, we are still owning land ownership. So naturally, significant lack of collateral combination will be very difficult. And digital divide is there, which everybody, two of them have mentioned about it. Specifically in e-commerce and digital marketing and AI integration, digital divide is very rampant. Sociocultural, the caregiver burden by 69% of women entrepreneurs cite a lack of family support as their primary hurdle. That also we are seeing, it's not only the lack of family support, but also the double burden that we are, all women are undergoing. A structural wage gap in rural area. Women earn only 50.47% of male wages due to occupational segregation in unskilled tasks. That's why Kerala government has decided, as a part of Stri Paksha Keralam, Kerala government has decided to give skill to women to get more, to increase the work participation. Way forward in 2031, from welfare to enterprise, we are moving away from seeing women as scheme workers to recipients of aid, beneficiaries to owners of enterprises. Knowledge economy, we are placing women at the heart of the digital revolution by integrating them into startup and high-value service sector. Closing the wage gap, we are committed to formalizing labor to ensure that equal pay for equal work isn't just a slogan but a reality, aiming to slash the gender gap and the gender division of labor by half over the next decade. By 2031, a woman's economic identity in Kerala will shift from being a beneficiary of a project to being a contributor to the society, as each and every household in Kerala will have a worker or self-employed woman. Thus, we are planning to increase the decision-making power and also independency. We will be stopping the financial independence. We have to increase the financial independence and stop making her think that, she is depending upon the other family members, male members. And before going to women in LSG, I would like to say something regarding education, which I have not included in the slide. In the education front also, we have done a little bit of work for the last 10 years. Like from Anganwadi textbooks onwards, we did gender audit of Anganwadi textbooks, and also all the textbooks up to 9th standard, we have done the gender audit. And also, apart from what Minnie was telling, it's not only the transgender policy has been made, as a part of the transgender policy, we have included in the 8th and 9th textbooks. 9th, na? 8th. 7th onwards, we have included transgender issues in our textbooks. So that also we have included. And also, as a part of Sabrimala issue, we have included one more box news in the 9th standard or 8th standard or 9th standard textbook, telling that, what is happening in a woman's body when she is getting her periods. So the whole scientific details of menstruation has been given in a box news, so that, every girl and boy are forced to study about the biological facts. And not only that, in the higher education, we have started giving menstrual leave for the students. That also we have done. And women in LSG, we can find out. So, apart from all these things, though we can say that, all the schools, yesterday, Vice Chairman BKR was telling about the structure of the schools, and, one should go and see the schools and all. He was explaining yesterday during the inauguration. And it's true that, when you go, you will feel that, at least I would like to study in the schools now. Yeah. I would like to study in the school. One will feel that much the schools, the structure has improved. But, structure has improved, the syllabus has improved, everything has improved, but still if you enter the first standard class, the boys and girls are sitting in two different rows. So the patriarchy still exists, the patriarchal values still exist, that also we have to eradicate. And regarding women in LSG, we can very well find that, the red shows women and the blue shows men. And how these contestants in Grama Panchayat, Block Panchayat, District Panchayat and municipality and municipal corporations, how the women have raised their voices and how they have competed and they have won the seats. That we can see, it's no wonder that why men are getting angry with the women representatives, because we can see that those who have contested are also going down, whereas women are coming up. A strategic government investment and infrastructure in the sports arena, that very few, data is available. That is another issue with which we have to solve by 2031. Many of the data are not gender, there is no gender breakup in many of the data, especially in sports and all, when even LSG, they are only doing it now. In the sports, we can find that, Kerala has got two woman-friendly or girl-friendly schools. One is in Kannur, sports school exclusively for girls, and another one is in GV Raja school, and the number of students who have increased, from 6th standard onwards, girls are given sports as a subject, and girls are admitted in those schools, that Kannur school. So that they have started only by 1987. That is why from 1995 onwards, number of girls have increased in the Kannur sports school. At GV Raja school also, it is 130, more than 130, and there are 30 associations under Kerala Sports Council, and all the 30 associations girls are playing, and also they have taken gold, silver, and also bronze medals in international, national, and state competitions in aquatics and also in athletics. Sub-junior and junior, that I am giving it here. And also we can see that, the funding that has been given to the sports department, for the development of women in sports is also too much. Too much in the sense, it has been, the number has been given here. The school to professional pathway, we are closing the talent leak by ensuring girl athletes don't drop out after school. There is a dropout after school, because, girls are not allowed to go for this, because they are not getting much of opportunity in jobs. They are not getting any employment. So after 10th, they are all getting, they are dropping out, and they are not coming up to the college level. There are student athletes, but they are not coming or taking up sports as their occupation or profession. Safety through strength, by integrating traditional martial arts like Kalaripayattu into regular training, we are equipping women with physical skills to ensure their own safety. Dheeram is another skilled enterprise. We are turning our self-defense and business model. And see, this has to be connected with crime against women. That's what I feel. Girls who are coming to sports are getting into it and, getting a lot of confidence in that. They are doing bodybuilding. They know how to offend. They know how to defend from other crimes, etc., etc. And this helps them out in the self-defense also, in one way or the other. And Mini and Dr. Nita has explained about Mini and see, whatever that had happened for the last 10 years, one cannot just talk within 10 minutes, I'm sorry. Whatever has been happened in the crime against women, they mentioned it that, the reporting is more, but, the helplines that Kerala government has, Mitra 181, and also women helpline, Vanita helpline, Snehida helpline, and also we have suicide prevention helplines, Disha, Maitri, police helplines, and also highway and other helplines, and tunnel suicide prevention center by NGOs, Sanjeevani is there, other facilities like Kelcom, and Kerala Police Women also. KSWDC is giving training to police department. Gender awareness is being given through all the government departments, through IMG, and also the Women and Child Department, we are giving to students. So much of awareness is being given to them, and both in the private and the public sphere, the atrocities against women or the crime against women are being controlled, or they are no more ready to bear it, but they are ready to report it, and they have the awareness that it's not my private affair, it has to be reported. So that is why they are reporting, and and that's why they are reporting, and the number is more. It's not more than any other state. It is more or less equal to other states, but in other states the reporting is not taking place. Women protection officer are also there in all the 14 districts to handle DV Act. So this reflects a significant shift in social attitudes, where harassment in both private and public spheres is no longer tolerated as a social norm, but is increasingly treated as a serious criminal offense. Reporting has increased. And 22, another thing is that women have started handling and also protect the environment through HKS. HKS is Harita Karma Sena. The growth timeline we can find 2017, it has started with 1,300 local self bodies in 2022, and now it is more than 38,355 women are in Harita Karma Sena, and they are increasing like anything. The monthly wages also, they are getting more than 25,000, nearly 7%, 8% are getting more than 25,000. And the next future vision is to transform Harita Karma Sena into a large scale enterprises after, Harita Karma Sena into large scale enterprise model by improving service quality and increasing business volume. Key strategies include standardizing service frequency and punctuality, integrating digital tools and modern technology, ensuring a minimum monthly income of 10,000 for all the members, branding HKs as a green facilitating centers to solve all local waste management needs, increasing the total annual statewide HKs, Harita Karma Sena revenue from 6,600 crores to 1,000 crores. Professionalism to readiness, goal, elevate waste management, just 1 minute, last one. Elevate waste management to a professionalized sector, Harita Karma Sena, technological professionalism, The networks can be converted to cooperatives, women cooperatives, and also through Harita Karma Sena and waste management, we can start more occupational units, and also more enterprises can be started. Anyhow, thank you very much. Yeah, what? Sorry, after all this.
Our next speaker is Srimati Kirti Singh. She is a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court of India. I request Srimati Kirti Singh to come. Yeah.
Not at all. First of all, I'd like to thank the Kerala Planning Board and for calling me here. It's a great honor to be able to come and talk about what Kerala would look like in 2031, or should look like in 2031. Dear panelists and members of the audience, comrades and friends, what I would like to do is concentrate in this paper on just certain things, and that is, what are the constitutional promises that we have met, and what are we still aiming for. Because Kerala is very different, I must admit. As Anandi has amply told you about all the schemes that exist here for women's safety and protection and everything. But there are still certain things in which it needs to go ahead. And I'm going to not waste my time on just saying what Kerala has achieved, but would rather like to spend these 15-20 minutes to make 3 or 4 points about what it can achieve, and the discussion is going to just center around violence in the home and outside. And we've seen the situation in the country, the rest of the country, I should say, where not only is there violence at home and outside, but in the home, the whole choice of women to do various things, what to wear, who to be with, who not to be with, to who to have a relationship, who to marry, has been severely restricted. So the family, women are being dragged back to to the times of Manu. And Hindutva has just expanded the whole concepts that were laid down, that a woman is a secondary person in the home, that she has to be under the protection of the relevant male, be it the husband or be it the husband's son if she's a widow, or the father when she's a daughter. So, and that she mustn't have too much agency in deciding anything about herself. And we know that the kind of backlash that we are facing in the rest of the country, where you have squads which are sort of running around, getting young couples in jails. You know, you actually have a whole conspiracy theory being promulgated, which is of love jihad. And after love jihad, we have seen that all these freedom of religion, legislations in 12 states, what they are doing is they are saying that even allurement to change religion is forcible change of religion. They're also alleging the legislations that are there say that if you are the accused, then you will have to prove that you're not there. The legislation makes a person apply for change of religion, and the legislation applies to marriage by coercion. So what happens is that in the rest of the country, courts, young couples are running to court for protection, and they are not getting it. And some are getting it also, in spite of the fact that the highest court of the land has said in 2 or 3 cases very clearly. One is the Puttuswamy case, where it said that the right to privacy is a right under Article 21, and it includes within it the right to choice. The choice to wear what one wants, the choice to speak whatever one wants, the choice to also marry whom one wants, the choice to have a relationship, if not marriage. But you have in the situation where the UCC, for instance, and a lot of states are trying to bring in a uniform civil code, are just a replication of the Hindu laws that exist just now. Not only that, there are some archaic aspects to the Hindu laws which are being brought in, which women had got rid of in 1950, or the 50s rather. So we are going backwards. For instance, the diversity of India is being truncated. It is being said that if you want to marry, you have to marry within a certain relationship, And earlier, the Hindu Marriage Act recognized that there were people in India who married as they wanted, or there were different customs of marriage rather, which is being denied now. Now, so the UCC is going backward. It is, and it is not taking in the best of any law. It just wants to sort of force Mitakshara law and homogenize the laws even relating to Hindus. So here in Kerala, what is it that we want to say? We know that there are various schemes to assist, facilitate intercaste marriages, and but I think the time has come when it is necessary to have a comprehensive law on crimes and killings in the name of honor. So the law should recognize the right to have a relationship of one's choice is a fundamental right under the Constitution. And not only should this be protected, but any infringement of this right should be punished, which means that if you harass a girl not to get married, whether you are the family, extended family, or the panchayat or whoever, if you stop, then the law should take its course. You normally know that this basically law allows intercaste and interfaith marriages. This law should allow. And of course, in Kerala also, we have seen the case of, say, Kevin Joseph, a Dalit Christian who was brutally murdered for marrying an upper caste Christian. And the 2023 case of a 14-year-old Muslim girl who was forced to drink pesticide by her father for communicating with a boy of a different religion. In Hadia's case in the Supreme Court, which came up, the girl's father actually said that the love jihad exists in Kerala, and the Supreme Court had set up a team, a special investigative team, to look into this matter and found that nothing does that. I'm just going to speak on what needs to be done. And now I'll speak on the fact that the crime rates in Kerala are quite high. I'm not going to repeat the crime rates, but for instance, domestic violence, which is cruelty under the old Indian Penal Code, it used to be 498A, that itself is about 24% of the total crimes against women. So domestic violence is fairly common. And talking of NHFS figures, we know that 52% women in NFHS 5 set between the ages of 18 and 49 believe a husband is justified in beating his wife under at least one of the specified reasons. What are they? Disrespecting in-laws, neglecting the house or children, etc. So this is a reality. And what are we going to do about this? The dowry continues to be a problem, and more needs to be done to control it, including changes in substantive and procedural laws. And I'm saying this knowing that we have a dowry prohibition officer in every district in Kerala. But perhaps that's not enough, because obviously he's not able to interfere with or report upon or monitor the cases of dowry in marriages. So we need to do more than that. Not only that, there's a problem when we talk of, we know of the Nirbhaya homes in Kerala, which provide shelters for women of all kinds of sex crimes and gender-based violence. We also know of schemes which offer financial support to all victims of sex violence. But apart from the change which has been recommended by the Kerala State Women's, is this too loud? The Kerala State Women's Commission, that the giver of dowry should not be punished. We feel there are other changes in the definition of dowry that should come about, because it's supposed to be in connection with marriage, the words are, but we feel that that is too limited. It should be prior to, or marriage dowry is given, after marriage dowry is given. But the Supreme Court also, in 3 or 4 cases, came out with the fact that there should be some connection, some visible connection with the giving and taking of dowry. So we feel that should be changed, the definition. EDWA has been saying so for a long time, that we should do that. Dowry, the Dowry Prohibition Act also is a gender-neutral act, which we think should be changed. Because mainly dowry is given from the girl's side to the boy's side. This has a deep impact on the inheritance of the girl. And while Kerala changed the inheritance laws 25 years before the rest of the country did, I have a feeling that still, if proper monitoring is done, we will see that things like dowry are impacting the law, and that we need to do more. One of the most important areas in which women's work needs to be recognized as productive work with economic value is in the area of marital property. Everybody has spoken of how care work is devalued, not recognized, etc. But even in homes which can afford it, all the property and the assets normally are in the name of the husband. And the woman is not entitled under the law in India to be an automatic equal partner of it. And this, we feel, must be done. There are, I think, I forget the figure, but there are more than 100 countries in which property and assets are automatically divided when a breakdown occurs, when a woman is separated, when she is deserted, etc. But in India, she is left alone with her children, that's all, to be taken care of, and mostly she goes off to her natal home. And there are some statistics which are there on this, but anyways, recently, and there were some also courts which recognized that a woman is an equal partner, whether she's earning or not, because of the care work, because of how she manages the house, what she does in the house, and that she should be considered equal. Apart from the fact that where there is no property, then of course the state has to step in and make sure that separated women, that widows and others are adequately provided for. So there is a Madras High Court judgment. Another issue which has come up is gender bias in the courts. The recent case of Bhavna, who related her harrowing experience just to be able to say that, yes, she was sexually harassed, and the courts wouldn't believe her. We see that while the government encouraged the Justice Hema Committee report to be published, many of the cases could not be taken forward because 26 of they could only take forward 26 cases, whereas there were more than 40. So that is one, women still don't feel free to be able to come out with cases of gender bias, of harassment. There's a need for women, for more women certainly, in the police force. And there was also a recent case of a producer in which she said that though she reported the case, didn't get registered. So obviously, even though gender sensitization is taking place in the police force and other places, more needs to be done. Following the Nalsa judgment, Kerala was the first state to come up with a comprehensive policy for the empowerment of transgender individuals. And they followed the steps of progressive nations. Okay. There's progressive nations around the world like Cuba, which offer free sex reassignment policy surgery. Kerala also provides for financial assistance and post-operative care. However, and there's a specific project called the Pride Project, which caters for this. But the Transgender Act itself needs changes. And Kerala should go ahead and do it. Because if Kerala doesn't do it, because it says that if there's assault of a transgender, it has less punishment than for other people, as if, placing them in a secondary position. So there has to be seats for reservation, and the Kerala High Court said that in public education there should be reservation, but this should be implemented. So Kerala, unlike the BJP-led center and states, has been a pioneer in establishing a just and equitable society for women. However, the process of reform to align women's rights with the constitutional promise of equality and justice and living with dignity has still some way to go, particularly in the areas that I talked about: marital property rights, dowry, crimes in the name of honor, and addressing gender bias in the courts and police. The vision of 2031 should be to create a society where women are equal in all ways and live in a society which doesn't normalize their oppression and the gender bias against them. Everybody is watching the tea being given. It's the wrong time, I think, to be this thing. So while we are ahead in several indices and not regressive like the rest of the country, and while we have much to look forward to, we still there is gender bias, there is not enough freedom for women to be able to say what they want to do and how to do it, and I think we should remedy that. And I especially came to Kerala because if you can't talk here, where can you talk? In the rest of the country, our freedoms are all being truncated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirti Singh. Our next panelist is Dr. Akwa Sheikh. Dr. Aksa Sheikh. She's a professor of community medicine in the Institute of Medical Science and Research, Delhi. Please.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you all doing? Great. Sorry, we all are having chai over here while you are watching. So, discrimination, huh? Okay. So, first of all, thank you so much to Government of Kerala and the Kerala State Planning Board that you gave me this opportunity to come to your state, which I truly feel is a very beautiful state with very beautiful people over here, to talk about a topic which is very close to my identity and heart, that is transgender welfare, as I'm also a transgender woman. I must admit that I'm very nervous at the moment because I've never been in a room with so many powerful women. And also very happy at the same time that I have an opportunity to talk heart to heart about something over here. Now, when we talk about transgender welfare, we need to understand who a transgender person is. How do they look like? And I'm sure when you think of a transgender person, an image comes to your mind. Does it come, an image to your mind? Yeah. Now, when we talk about transgender people, typically the image is of a transgender woman, who is in sari and who looks feminine. But we forget that when we talk about transgender people, they are not only transgender women. It is any person whose identity of their gender is different from what was told to them or assigned to them at birth, and it can be a transgender man. Now, I must say this very emphatically that transgender men are often invisibilized or not even thought of when we are making policies. Our act, the Transgender Persons Act, says that the transgender definition also includes intersex people. These are people who do not fit clearly into the male or female sex categories. They are not necessarily transgender people. We also say that it also includes a lot of gender queerness and diversity and socio-cultural groups which may not necessarily fit the Western definition of transgender people. I'm putting this outright at the first because now as we talk, don't think of transgender women as only women, but transgender men, intersex, non-binary people, and so on. And also don't forget the lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, and queer people as we talk about it. And this is important to know because if we don't talk about them, if we don't think about them, then they are going to be missed out from our services. Now, whenever we are making a policy or thinking about doing something, we have to know the numbers. How many transgender people are there? That's $1 million question. The census, which was last conducted in 2011, said that the state of Kerala has less than 4,000 people from other gender. The government did a survey and that number was approximately 25,000 a decade back. There's a national portal for transgender people which issues ID cards and certificates to transgender people, and in the state of Kerala, only 1,500 people have received that certificate or ID from the central government, which gives them rights, scholarships, etc. across the country. What's the real number? None of us has an idea, but we can say for sure that it's definitely much more than all of them. It is definitely in lakhs and not thousands. So this is something important that we need to be counted and everyone needs to be counted. Now, this slide had a title of 2.0 because thankfully the state of Kerala has been an early mover, a pioneer in transgender rights and has done some work. We had the Nalsa judgment that Advocate Kirti Singh spoke of in 2014, and just within few months the Kerala government came with the transgender policy in 2015. Also did this comprehensive survey which gave out the numbers, how many people are educated, unemployed, the violence against them and so on. A few years later, the government came out, when I say government, the union government came out with the act, that is the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, and the rules, which, as my previous speaker has mentioned, is not really something that we were looking forward to. And then the government also made the state government the welfare boards. And it had also talked about transgender justice boards at state and district levels. And numerous schemes have also come out. There are at least a dozen different initiatives that have been taken. It's well begun. Now it's important to put our foot on the pedal and accelerate. Now, while we do that, it's very important that it has to be community informed. The principle of nothing about us, without us, has to be in implementation over here. So first of all, we need a fresh survey because the previous survey is now more than 11 years old, to find out how many of us are there and how many men, women, non-binary people are there. It should not be a one-time exercise, but should be done at regular intervals like 3 to 5 years. And this survey has to be developed by transgender people. It should be administered by transgender people. It should be reported by transgender people. And trust me, we have enough talent in the transgender community to do that. It should be hybrid in the sense that it should be also having an option of online submission, self-submission, because a lot of transgender people are in closet. You go to the house and ask, are you a transgender person? Obviously, they are going to say no, or, to disclose to someone. So what's important is that I have a choice to go on and survey and self-affirm my identity as a transgender person and give you information, which is what the NALSA judgment also mentions. It's very important to now revise the state policy. It's a decade old. The Act has come after that. Let's take certain good things from the Act. There are not so good things also there. And revise our policy in consultation with the transgender community of Kerala. It's very important that the transgender welfare boards are given a lot more power, that they don't become too bureaucratic, heavy bodies, with so many secretaries and only 5 transgender people who will not find a voice in those boards. Also, let's ensure that at the district level, we have, representation of the transgender people. A body which is only at the central level really cannot do much justice there. We need to improve our budgetary allocation for transgender people. Currently, only 7 crore rupees is given for transgender welfare in your budget, which is absolutely nothing. We make statues of 100 times that amount. A very important thing, and that again comes from the NALSA judgment, is reservation. I know this can be a very sticky topic, but this is also very important. Transgender people need reservation. They don't need charity. Enough of charity and, giving to us. What is our right is reservation. We have been marginalized for centuries and centuries. It's important to give scholarship, which the government is already giving, but what I'm proposing is give scholarship plus. There's, only covering the tuition fees or the hostel fees is not going to be enough. There are a lot of other things, other expenses that transgender people endure and the families endure. And that is why a hardship allowance, in addition to the wages, that they do. I'm, for example, a transgender woman in Delhi, and the safety of women in Delhi. So I started avoiding public transport, and I had to buy a car and spend money on it. No one is looking at that cost that a transgender person has to pay because our public transport is not safe, or because I have to always find a good hotel to stay because I'm not sure about my security. So that is, that hardship allowance, give the job to economists to calculate that and tell what is the additional burden that a trans person has to face just to survive in this society, and give that allowance to them. And very importantly, give reservations, and give horizontal reservations, because transgender people are not a unitary caste block. They are also from Dalit community, OBC communities, and so on. So ensure that we are represented horizontally. Now, when it comes to transgender people, I always say this, that representation matters, and it's very nice that even on this stage, I am representing the transgender community. There are many of my transgender friends in the audience, and I'm very honored to be speaking in front of them. But we need representation also in the local self-governments. We have reservation for women. Let's also include transgender people there. In the state government, we have not had even a single member of parliament in 75 years of our country, ever. Though we can nominate people to the parliament, the president can nominate, no one has ever done that, right? And we know that as a minority, it's very difficult to fight elections and win, but we need a table in the parliament, in our state assemblies, in our panchayats. It's very important that we also become the face of public delivery. Visibility helps reduce discrimination. So whether you get the job as a school teacher, which many of the transgender people are denied, like for example in the recent Jane Kaushik case that the Supreme Court took up. In education, in police, imagine the comfort that I'll get as a transgender person if I see that there is a transgender police person on the street. In the healthcare, if you go to a hospital and you find me as a transgender doctor over there, I'm sure you will feel much relieved over there. In education, not just school, but also higher education. Now, what happens is typically, in terms of transgender people and children especially, the school dropout rates are too huge. 40% are not able to complete school in a state like Kerala. And that speaks a lot about the discrimination that happens even before like 15, 16 years of age. And only few of them are able to graduate or go to post-graduation, which should be the norm now. So it's very important to make schools safer. And I'm saying safer because they can be dangerous places for transgender students. A lot of bullying and discrimination happens there. Make sure that there's sensitization. I was very happy to know that in the textbooks, those things have been included, but we need to do more and better. Teacher sensitization is needed. Parent sensitization is needed. They should know that in their children's school, there's a transgender student also who is studying, and they can call that child home. The curricular revision needs to be done. The infrastructure needs to be changed. How many of our schools have a toilet that a transgender child can use? If you ask any of the transgender people, we have horrible stories where we didn't use school toilets at all in those 6 to 8 hours of our schools. Make higher educational institutions also safer for transgender people, safer in terms of physical health and also mental health. If you look at the number of suicides that transgender people are forced to do, because it's not really a choice, it's 40 times more than the cisgender people. So make sure that everyone is sensitized. The infrastructure is in place. We don't have hostels to stay. The curricular revisions happen. Scholarships and more are given to them. And it's very important to track every openly out transgender student in a higher education institute till they graduate, to ensure that they don't drop out or give up because of the difficult circumstances. We must not forget the Anganwadis, where the child first goes even before the school. Are our Anganwadi workers sensitized about children who may be acting girlish while they look like boys? And that's where the bullying starts. That's where the trauma starts and the children start to withdraw. So make sure that the Anganwadi workers are sensitized. We have to ensure that a child who goes to school and completes college then has some kind of employment guarantee. A lot of transgender people feel, oh, what's the use of this degree because no one will give me job. In my hospital, there are so many ward boys and ward girls who are postgraduate transgender people. They come and work there as something that requires only 12th standard because they feel that is a safe environment while the rest of the world is not. It's very important to also provide protection. And when I say protection here, the role of the police is very important. The Act says that there has to be a transgender protection cell made in every state. I am not sure if Kerala has done that. We need complaints officer in every institution, and the details have to be put on the website. And very important that police sensitization has to be done regularly, and meaningful sensitization. A 1-hour workshop cannot really sensitize people who are carrying decades of discrimination with them. And jails and prisons have to be also made trans friendly, because horrible crimes happen over there against trans people. I'm a doctor, so let me also talk a bit about the healthcare, which I think is a great need of transgender people. We need healthcare much more than cisgender people. Cisgender women need more than cisgender men. When it comes to healthcare, don't forget the mental health care. The burden of mental illness on transgender people because of the discrimination is huge. Go beyond insurance and provide comprehensive health coverage that includes OPDs, the therapy. We spend thousands of rupees on therapy because of the trauma given to us by other people, on drugs, hormones, so many things, even binders, for example. Bring curricular changes in the doctor's curriculum. I'm very happy that it was the Kerala High Court which told National Medical Commission that you need to change your books, you need to change your curriculum, and they did some amount of work on that. But that needs to translate also into nursing education, where it is currently very limited, into physiotherapy, rehabilitation education. We must provide gender-affirming care, and more on that a bit later. When it comes to gender-affirming care, it's not necessarily only surgery, it can be counseling, hormones and so on. We need doctors and nurses who need to have better training on it. I suggest to the Kerala government that they start fellowship courses for doctors, endocrinologists, plastic surgeons, psychiatrists, specifically how to care for trans, intersex and queer people. We have standards of care which are made in America, they won't work in Kerala. We need to modify them and ensure that they are in culturally sync with us. We need grievance redressal. Transgender people are dying of botched up surgeries. A very famous case happened in this state itself. We lost a life. Where do we go and complain, right? Transgender adolescents who are below 18 years of age also need care, and that's a huge controversy. We need more consultation on that so that we realize we are actually not harming those babies. Intersex children get operated at birth and their genitalia are mutilated, and there is no law which will prevent that. Tamil Nadu has done that work, you can also do. And very importantly, ensure that the sex conversion therapy that people are forced into going is abolished and becomes a malpractice. I also suggest that gender affirming care can become a medical tourism hub in Kerala. What you need for that is expert surgeons, which you have, good nursing care, of course, world class, value for money, great hospitality. We can actually attract a lot of transgender patients from India, from across Southeast Asia and Asia to come and have the procedures over here. And this will also ensure that it gives more employment to the transgender community over here. I would also suggest that let's create out of 14 districts, one model district for inclusive services. This is important because we have a small dispersed population and a lot of services that we provide across. But if we can create a model where one can get education, employment, healthcare, and accommodation together, a lot of people would want to come to that district and it becomes easier for administration. I will want to shift to Kerala then. So, thank you. So the major changes and the key take-home messages is count everyone. Remember that there's own people beyond transgender women. Also improve the budget, create medical hubs, tourism hubs, provide reservations, and very importantly, have empathy and kindness that you already have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aksa. As you mentioned, we have this transgender advisory, protection board, and also recently the Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, they have opened a hostel for the TG students in their campus. And our next speaker is Srimati Anupama TV, IAS. And one announcement that tea and snacks are arranged outside the hall, and you can go and have it in groups. We cannot disperse the session in between. So please go and have your tea.
A presentation, please. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anupama, Secretary, Local Self-Government Department. I'm here to talk about a specific topic, development with gender justice, the role of Kudumbashri. Any gender discussion in Kerala wouldn't be complete without a discussion on Kudumbashri, so I'm going ahead with it. So I'm talking about 1990s, early 1990s, when the discussion of Kudumbashri started in Kerala. Like it started as a small pilot in Alappuzha municipality in 1992. Those were the times when all the schemes and the projects for women, they were talking about women as a beneficiary of welfare and protection. Like there would be subsidy-linked schemes, there would be like measures for the protection of women from domestic violence and all that. But that's the time when Kudumbashri came in consolidated activities in 1998, when we were still in the nascent stages of discussions about the gender justice in the state of Kerala. So how Kudumbashri filled the gap was through multiple, like you can see the areas in which Kudumbashri influenced women and the society in general. So instead of talking about women as a beneficiary of welfare and protection, it started talking about social dignity and mobility. It introduced schemes for the control over income and assets, and it freed women from structural poverty. In fact, it started as a poverty alleviation scheme, and women were driving the poverty alleviation scheme in the state of Kerala. And then women slowly translated into community development role. The CDS, ADS and all gave opportunity for women to lead the community groups, and then and women, they were given skills and they could avail all the social protection measures because they started working in the society and they were more aware of their rights rights and entitlements. Slowly, they started getting a voice in the governance as well. So thus, Kudumbashree shifted the gender discourse in Kerala from beneficiary women to women as economic and political actors. If you see the major areas of intervention of Kudumbashree is working in the areas of social development, like among the like AC, ST, elderly, and all the marginalized communities, and it is having specific work in the area of women empowerment. I would say I would have updated as gender empowerment as well, but still the core pillar of Kudumbashree's work is around economic empowerment. A little bit more on that. Kudumbashree used economic empowerment as the major tool of gender justice. Since its inception, it was the project itself was conceived like that. If you see the initial part of Kudumbashree, it was only about economic empowerment of women. It was mainly focusing on the microcredit, and then slowly it became like access to financing and all that. So initially itself, women started having independent access to credit. It was not dependent on the man in the household. It was women started getting access to credit, and that reduced dependence on male earners. It increased intra-household bargaining powers, and it enhanced decision making of women in education, health, asset purchase, etc. So what started as a moment for poverty alleviation, it directly led to redistribution of power within the household and within the community. And then women started identifying as a collective group, and the social capital was able to mobilize better returns for the gender justice as a whole. If you see, the neighborhood groups created safe, deliberative spaces for women where they could discuss their real issues, all these issues which would later become the areas of protection and discussions for protection for the government as a whole. Women began discussing domestic violence, alcoholism, mobility, migration, discrimination, etc. And the peer networks reduced isolation of the women. They got safe spaces to discuss their issues. They were not isolated anymore. And women started being recognized as a political constituency and not just as a group. And justice, it became a public concern, and women had the psychological safety to reveal their concerns. And going ahead, the Kudumbashree started decentralizing gender justice by institutionalizing gender within the local governance scenario of the state as well. So women started, through the Kudumbashree, women started coming out. They started entering the Gram Sabhas. They started their participation in the Gram Sabhas. Slowly, their voices became gender concerns, which had to be converted into local plans within the LSGIs. And then they started entering many community forums. Like earlier, like if you see the PTA committee, it will be like dominated by men. The PTA meetings will be attended by women, but the PTA will be dominated by women. Similarly, Anganwadi level monitoring committee, most of the community groups and the committees and the school groups, all these groups had representation of the women, and slowly they started emerging as elected representatives also, definitely supported by the reservation principles also. And a few improvements you can see in the system. Women energy, the neighborhood group members later became ward members or panchayat presidents. So it was not like, there was nothing like proxy there. Women actually emerged as leaders, and their leadership was absorbed into the leadership that was quite required in the local self-government institutions in the state. And then if you see, gender-sensitive local projects also started coming up. Women needed employment, women needed support, women needed subsidy for starting enterprises, and that voice became an active voice in the plan preparation also. So Kudumbashree operationalized gender justice at ward level, in the field level also, not just at a policy level. Like I'll just simply sum up a case study of Harita Karma Sena also. You must be knowing Harita Karma Sena is the largest enterprise group under the Kudumbashree, which is handling the non-bio waste collection in the entire state. So we have 38,355 members in Harita Karma Sena spread across all the local bodies in the state. And if you see the numbers, like just a case study of the recently concluded local body elections, we have 355 Harita Karma Sena members. Out of them, 547 contested in the local body elections and 219 of them were elected. Like, see the percentage of the people who, women who got elected from the Harita Karma Sena. So you start interacting with the Harita Karma Sena members every day. They became the face of waste management, and in effect, they became the face of local self-government institutions also. And that is evident in the success rate they had. But at the same time, we also knew that the economic empowerment doesn't necessarily translate into social empowerment. So it also started gender interventions within Kudumbashri. As I said, economic empowerment cannot fully and automatically translate into gender justice, and patriarchy is structural, not just economic. And silence and stigma, they need institutional platforms for discussion, opening up and all that. And collective power needs consciousness also. And then we need to target the most marginalized women also to get out of the gender bias. Addressing community resilience also needed collective action. Because of all these reasons, Kudumbashri started a vertical for introducing gender interventions, which further solidified and consolidated all the actions which was already taken up in the economic empowerment side. So women's development, it was based on the understanding that women's development must translate into right-based engagement if it needs to sustain and influence the society in the long term. If you, I'll just sum up a few gender interventions of Kudumbashri. This is not comprehensive, but Kudumbashri started working in the social empowerment of women sector, the protection, the help desk, and universalization of gender resources in all the local bodies through gender resource centers and community counseling, crime mapping, based on the crimes faced by the women in the society, and gender clubs, vulnerability mapping, art and theatre group to advance the discussions on gender, and self-learning program with customized module for all walks of the society. So these were some of the gender interventions which supplemented the economic initiatives of Kudumbashri. And to further enhance the results of all the activities undertaken by Kudumbashri, the Kudumbashri ensured that inclusion is key to ensuring gender justice fully. Because even when we talk about gender as a whole, even when we try to ensure the economic development of women in the society, there are marginalized groups which need deliberations, immediate attention, targeting, etc. So Kudumbashri started focusing on the special projects also, like ST women collectors, engaging migrant women, engaging elderly women, coastal and tribal women, and we had buds which helped the parents of the children, and destitute free Kerala were the poorest of the poor were addressed. So with all these initiatives, Kudumbashri ensured that the gender justice can be served fully only when the intersectionalities are also addressed. But then we have the changing times ahead, where Kudumbashri is also going through many challenges that the society is facing right now. This is not comprehensive. I just listed out a few. So we have high levels of educational unemployment among the women, and then aspirational mismatch is also a problem that Kudumbashri is facing. So Kudumbashri also needs to make changes in the way it is carrying forward its activities. And then there is digital divide, and then online harassment. So the protection needs are changing in a different way these days. And there is higher care burden in the aging. We are an aging society, and there is an increasing care burden, which is definitely going to be affecting women the most. And then the continuing gender-based violence and the need to accelerate the response, because the women are more into education. They are trying to occupy more of the employment spaces, but at the same time, the gender-based violence, if you see, the reduction is not keeping up the pace with the kind of advances women are making in the other sectors. And gender auditing, it should not be a theoretical concept anymore. It is required at the grassroots level, in every policy, every project, every local self-government institution level. And also we can see a weak participation of women in politics beyond the local body level. So when we talk about these changing scenario, Kudumbashri should also change itself to suit the demands of the current generation, changing times, and the new requirements that is posed by all the issues that I just mentioned about. An area that Kudumbashree should focus on immediately is economic repositioning of itself. Right now, Kudumbashree is focusing more on microcredit, but then it should talk more about earlier Kudumbashree's effectiveness was we were assessing it through how much of credit was raised, how much of microcredit were raised, and whether they had access to credit. But right now we should talk more about the kind of asset that is created, the wealth that is created for women as a part of these initiatives. And there should be deliberate effort to increase the work participation also, without confining ourselves to the self-employment initiatives that has been undertaken by the Kudumbashree. There should be more avenues for wage employment for women through the intervention of Kudumbashree. And there should be efforts in such a way that women are able to enter into high-value digital green sectors, etc. Right now, so like many times there are stereotypes within Kudumbashree also, like women focus more in catering groups and women run the butts schools. But at the same time, it is the need of the hour that we focus on high-value sectors for women. And we also have to recognize and formalize the care economy. The care burden is increasing. At the same time, care economy should be established with the help of Kudumbashree women. And most important factor, institutional deepening within the Kudumbashree and among the Kudumbashree members, as well as among all the institutions which support Kudumbashree. Kudumbashree need to have more institutional autonomy and accountability. Kudumbashree was always designed in such a manner that it supplements the activities of local self-government institutions in women's wealth creation, poverty eradication, and social empowerment of women. At the same time, the institutional autonomy is getting lost, not just because of the structural problems within the LSGIs or LSGD, but also because of the way the Kudumbashree itself is structured, the elections, the politics within the Kudumbashree, all these are getting affecting this. And we need to integrate the gender priorities better into local self-government plans and budgets. Beyond the WCP Women Competent Plan is important, but then the gender priorities of each local body, each local woman should be integrated into a plan. And we should also build leadership pipeline for elected governance. As I said, women are able to translate themselves into local body representatives, but not beyond that. So Kudumbashree should pioneer this as well. And another area is intersectional and intergenerational inclusion. As I said earlier, Kudumbashree is not able to meet the aspirations of the new generations. We need differentiated strategies for marginalized women. We need to bridge... I'll finish. And we need to bridge generational divide within the collectives, because when there is a lot of age gap among the Kudumbashree members, we can see that their aspirations are different. They are more likely to be not getting converted into a collective group that results in wealth creation. We need to align enterprise models with young aspirants also, because the youth, they want high value sectors, they want to venture into areas where they are good at, they have skills in, but Kudumbashree has to come out of its existing shambles to ensure that they are keeping up with the aspirations of the youth. And we need to focus on youth and children right from their early days, because Kudumbashree in the end is a sum total of aspirations, skill, and the interest of the women in the society. So we need to focus on youth and children better. Like right now, the Bal Sabha and all that, the interventions are limited to the life skills, social skills, etc. But it also need to point on preparing women for economic empowerment and norm change and social support. So even now, Kudumbashree discussions are among the women of Kudumbashree. They talk about gender to Kudumbashree women. Their neighborhood groups, it is they actually assemble in a courtyard of one of the houses, and all the women in the neighboring houses, they come, they discuss gender, but that's not sufficient. We need to transform the gender norms at neighborhood level itself. Just see this room. We have a room full of women. We are not are our discourses getting translated into real action by involving the entire society? The same problem is happening with Kudumbashree also. So Kudumbashree should also make an effort to transform the gender norms at neighborhood level. And also, with the changing times, there is a need that we expand mental health and community support systems and extend it to all the members of the community that the Kudumbashree is influencing. So with that, I'm winding up my presentation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Anupama. Our next speaker is Srimati Dhanya Rajendran.
Thank you to the Kerala State Planning Board for inviting me. When tea was announced, when an IAS officer was speaking, obviously people were reticent to get up. Now that a journalist is speaking, I think more of you can go out and have your tea and come back. But I wanted to point out something with which TV Anupama started with, ended with. She said, look at this room, we are full of women, right? In fact, I was thinking of the same when the event started, that tomorrow there is going to be a session on federalism. I'm sure that room is going to be filled with men because politics and federalism is only for men, right? And gender is only for women. I mean, this is where our conversation should also begin, that when we speak about gender, we keep speaking to one gender and we are not including everyone in the conversation. When the note for this session was circulated among the speakers, this is what a portion of it said. Kerala has long stood out for outcomes that matter deeply to women's lives: near universal female literacy, favorable sex ratios, low maternal and infant mortality, and high female life expectancy. At the same time, Kerala's experience also reveals enduring and emerging challenges. These include issues of women's labor force participation, unpaid care work, and forms of social conservatism. And I think this is where the challenge lies, or what we call as the Kerala paradox. Kerala is rightfully proud of all its achievements in the public health and public education sectors. In fact, Dr. Anandi said 10 minutes or even maybe hours are not enough to really look at what the government has done over the years, right? These metrics do show how exceedingly well we did compared to many Indian states and even globally. But I believe here lies the danger. For example, when crimes happen against women in other states of India, or when patriarchy thrives there, they are easier to confront. They are visible, they provoke guilt, because the surrounding politics is not seen as progressive, and that state cannot point to really good gender indicators. They can't comfort themselves by citing low maternal mortality, low infant mortality, or a high infant mortality, or women's health outcomes. They cannot pat themselves on the back. So they are forced to admit something is deeply wrong and that they must work on gender justice. But Kerala is different. Here we have much to celebrate, and much of that is real. And because these achievements are genuine, they also invite a constant patting on the back, precisely where the risk lies. Because this success can also create a comforting illusion. It allows us to pretend that women overall must therefore be doing well, that good health indicators must mean social equality, that survival must mean freedom, that education must mean empowerment. But patriarchy does not disappear because maternal mortality falls. Violence does not end when literacy rises. And equality is not achieved simply because women are living longer. Progressiveness, achievements, and even progressive politics, I believe, can be a veneer over the actual status of women. And if we were to do a dipstick test of the status of women in Kerala, socially, economically, and politically, the picture is not equally rosy. So if Kerala wants to be at par with the world's most gender equal countries like Iceland, Norway, Finland, or Sweden, there are several critical gaps to be addressed. Unlike almost everybody on this stage, I am neither a policymaker nor a politician or an activist who has worked on gender exclusively for years. Therefore, my suggestions may not be as nuanced as the others, but I'll still try to make an effort and share some of my thoughts. I'll do a quick overview of education and economy. So I was looking at the economic review, which said that while Kerala's gross enrollment ratio of 41.3%, it has a GER of 41.3, it's the seventh highest in India and it's well above the national average. But it's still not very good compared to all the countries that we aspire to be. And here we are faced with a dual problem. One, we do need to increase the GER, which means we have to make more and more young women go for higher education. And in this budget, I saw that the Kerala government announced that degree education in arts and science colleges will be free for all students. I believe that's a very important step because making higher education largely tuition free will allow more women to come to colleges, because in a household where if they can pay for only one child, it's always the male child who may get the importance compared to a female child. Now, in countries like Finland, they also assure that if a person has to travel a considerable distance to access education, they subsidize travel and they provide housing grants. This is something that Kerala perhaps can look at. We must also focus on lifelong learning, which is we must introduce flexible pathways where a student can switch specialization or return to the university at 19, 24, 40, 50 without any social stigma. And to boost GER, Kerala must ensure that a degree is not just seen as a marriage credential, but a gateway to a career. How can we do that? We can perhaps implement the four-year undergraduate programs with research and internship components. We should stop seeing vocational training as secondary to university education. And we can increase GER by formally integrating the vast network we have of technical universities or technical institutes into the university framework. This will allow a diploma holder to seamlessly transition into a degree platform. We already have Let's Go Digital, DigiCall, and other initiatives, and I feel that we must focus on these because by offering high quality, state accredited hybrid and online degrees, Kerala can capture the demographic of women who are forced to discontinue education due to domestic constraints, especially after marriage. Now, I said there's a dual problem because if you increase GER, which is if you make more women go to colleges, then there is a problem of underemployment and unemployment. So the live registers in Kerala actually show that more women are seeking jobs than men. The data as of August 2025 is that nearly 64% of registered job seekers from Kerala are women. And these are not underqualified applicants. Over 94% of them had above SSLC education. Among professional and technical job seekers, the numbers are very significant. There were 29,000 engineering graduates looking for jobs, over 5,500 medical graduates, and nearly 1 lakh other trained professionals. So the issue in Kerala is not that women lack education or skills. The issue is that even highly educated women are unable to translate their qualifications into employment. But the solution is not easy, right? For example, if I am invited to a session like this in Tamil Nadu, I can easily say, let's bring large industries here. And that's what Tamil Nadu is doing. They're bringing automobile. But Kerala is a landlocked state. We have precarious problems where we cannot be encouraging large industries to come because we have to also think of our ecology, of what happens to our forests, our lands, our agriculture, etc. Therefore, those solutions cannot work in Kerala. We'll have to think of other stuffs. I'm not the expert, but I think high-skill services and technology could be one of those solutions. If you look at a policy initiative which Tamil Nadu has, it's called the Neo Tidal Park. It's an initiative by the Tidal Park Limited where they aim to establish mini IT parks. This is only 50,000 square feet in every second tier, third tier city, small towns, etc. So that could perhaps, the mini IT parks could be something which Kerala looks at. I want to also quickly look at the community health workers. We have seen ASHA workers protesting in Thiruvananthapuram for many months. And I know that it's a very politically polarized debate in Kerala because of the way in which the whole protest panned out. But I want to say that if Kerala can think of something revolutionary, think of a wonderful precedent, which I know is politically highly problematic and perhaps even possible, but we should start thinking about regularizing our community health workers. And if there is one state that is capable of doing that, then that is definitely Kerala. Considering the dual burden of non-communicable diseases and emerging infectious diseases, we cannot afford to be laid back in primary health care. As a state, we have understood how valuable our community health workers are, including our ASHA workers. So if we are no longer in a denial mode, we know that they are our backbone. So then why don't we regularize them? We give them dignity, credibility, financial security, and social security. Again, there's been a lot of debate on this, but perhaps a regular fixed monthly income like the states of Andhra Pradesh, Sikkim, and Haryana are giving, and also social security like PF, gratuity, pension, and maternity benefits for these people. Incentives can be added to this. I think the whole problem of how India looks at community health workers is that incentives are becoming a mainstay. I remember speaking to a community health worker from Bihar, and she was saying that all that they get is incentives, that too not regularly, maybe once in 6 months, once in 3 months. So incentives too cannot be the mainstay, but they have to be revised according to the disease profile of the state. And I think we must go back and see what are we making these health workers do. If you speak to an ASHA worker, their duties have increased over the years. They have to do this, they have to do that, and they have to do this also. But do they need to do all this? Should we be doing the same thing in the urban and the rural areas? I think we must have a critical rethink of how we are looking at our community health workers, and Kerala must lead in that. Okay, now I will move on to something I am personally more familiar with, and I hope that Kerala will not look away like most other states are. This is something called the backlash paradox. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. In many countries, there is a backlash paradox, and I can see that playing out in Kerala too. Now, what is a backlash paradox? As women gain more economic and social power, men start feeling a loss of control. This leads to a backlash where traditional power hierarchies are reasserted through online vitriol or, in extreme cases, physical violence. Now, just an example, if you take any debate in a Malayalam channel these days, what you see are a host of people who are coming and talking about why are some of these laws only for a certain gender. In fact, there are big demands being made by prominent people in Malayalam media that dowry law should no longer be about gender, that every law has to be degendered. There are so many demands being made that women are the oppressors and men are becoming the oppressed. Now, we may think of this as a fringe, as just a talk show, as a debate going on, or a press meet being held in Thiruvananthapuram of people asking for the men's commission. But this is the backlash paradox, and we cannot ignore it, because across the world, we are seeing a problem with the rise of the incels and the manosphere. These are terms that you should Google if you are not aware of that. Incel is an involuntary celibate. It's a bit difficult to explain, but a lot of the young people today identify themselves as incels. And these are people in our state also. For example, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a man arrested called Toppi in Kerala. And parents were shocked that young children were watching this man live streaming his game on a daily basis and saying all kinds of misogynistic stuff. So parents thought their children are watching a gamer, but this was a 24-hour stream of abuse on women. So these are people who call themselves incels, and there's something called manosphere. Now, manosphere basically is a digital space where men come together saying that we are all facing problems because of women, and therefore what we must do. Now, you may think that what can governments do about it, right? So there's a loose network of communities that claim to address men's struggles like dating, fitness, or fatherhood. But what they often do is they promote advice and attitudes. Now, in Sweden, they had a survey and they found that some of the highest per capita web traffic is in Europe. The manosphere there often frames the state's progressive policies as a war on men or the feminization of society. I think in Kerala, the term being used is feminazis. Often feminists are called so. Now, what is the narrative that these people create? They argue that the state is focused on women's rights, so men are the disadvantaged group in custody battles, in education and social status. In Sweden, anti-feminist bloggers have successfully moved their rhetoric from fringe forums to major newspapers by framing their arguments as a defense of free speech against woke state of policies. And that's something that we see in Kerala too. This kind of dialogue is no more fringe. We are seeing that playing out in the mainstream. So your question may be, what can the state do? And should the state do anything at all? Because after all, these are just discussions happening, right? The Nordic Council of Ministers in 2020 requested an assessment of the extent of online misogyny and anti-feminism in these countries, and the result was a report called The Angry Internet. Now, this report mapped out how misogyny spreads in the region and recommended that governments should treat online hate speech against women as a barrier to democracy. They found out that deplatforming, which is basically blocking or banning people from platforms, is not a solution. Because if one person is saying hatred on one platform, we block them, They will just have another idea or they'll go to a different platform. So they looked at creating change, and they said that change should be both immediate and long term. Now, what is one of those things which that angry internet report said? It said that early intervention could be in the form of educating child givers to be less gender stereotypical in their daily interactions and verbal exchange with children. Instead of lauding girls for princess like appearances and niceness, at the same time complimenting boys on being tough, fun, or assertive, a more gender neutral approach should be considered. There are lots of countries which are looking at expanding the definition of hate speech, that hate speech against women also should be included. I'm not a supporter of hate speech laws, but I'm saying these are things that people are looking at. So Kerala too must look at how to really address this, because this is a problem that is facing us. I was at a conference recently where a lot of lawyers who practice in the Kerala courts came and warned that this is a real problem, and if we do not handle this right now, if we do not sensitize people, then the issues will go on. I want to quickly finish with something that Dr. Rao mentioned. I mean, everybody did. That violence against women in Kerala is increasing, or perhaps it is showing increased in statistics because more and more women are reporting violence. But I want to take that a step further as a journalist who covers violence against women. What happens after a woman files a complaint? In case after case, we are seeing that in trials they are falling apart because the police do not record statements properly. It may sound as a very frivolous problem, but many big cases have fallen apart in Kerala because the first statement of the victim, then what is said in the FIR, then a later statement to the magistrate, etc., do not match because police are not being sensitized, taught continuously. It can't be just one sensitization program in 10 years, right? You have to constantly sensitize our forces to see that when, from the time of registering a complaint, how are we looking at violence against women? And the second, I was hearing a woman who represents the Women of Cinema Collective, Dr. Asha, speak to various media houses in Kerala. She has now given a complaint of sexual harassment against a Kerala politician. And something very essential that she pointed out, I believe Kerala can do something about this, is the problem of public prosecutors in court. You have so many you may take posh very seriously in the state, you may take sexual harassment very seriously in the state, you are encouraging people to file complaints, but what happens after they go to courts? Public prosecutors deal with 50 to 60 cases per day and they do not pay attention to any cases. So can Kerala think of a way out where you have special public prosecutors looking at crimes against women and dedicating their time to that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dhanya, for pointing out the emerging trends of manosphere and the entire culture of backlash. We are also very much concerned about that, and the many women activists are taken up this issue in digital and the virtual world. But this is a growing concern, we know, and the feminazis and the feminicis, we are familiar of these two words right now. And recently, I think parallelly there is a fest going on, the Feminici Fest in the Northern Kerala now, celebrating the or reclaiming Feminici as feminists. So our next panelist is Srimati Dr. Deepa E. She is from Asim Premji University School of Development.
Good evening, everybody. Just a minute. Good evening, everybody. I first of all thank the Kerala Planning Kerala State Planning Board for inviting me to be part of this panel. It has been wonderful listening to all the panelists, enriching learning experience for me. To start with, I think most of us here in general and most of the efforts, whatever we have been doing, is all on the private sphere, right? So what I was thinking is also to discuss a bit more on the public sphere, is what many things are happening. So I want to discuss a bit more on the public sphere, where let's recognize the elephant in the room, yeah? Because that's one thing where nobody or enough has been spoken, but nothing has been happened. So, for example, we know in Kerala all the indicators doing well in terms of women, especially the gender development indicators, except few kind of dimensions. So, high in social sector, especially in health and education, but the worry is low work participation rate among women. Right. So this is a paradox is what everybody is talking about. Why it is a paradox? Because a general theory working everywhere in the global, except in India, and very particularly, very curiously, everybody wants to know why in Kerala. So when the education of women goes up, we see that women's participation in the paid work also is going up. So wherever we see, especially in the world of globalization, privatization and liberalization, many countries in Europe in 70s, 60s, what happened was women's participation in the paid workforce. Why there is so much worry in the paid workforce? Because the present system, the economic system, what we are talking about. So we talk about empowerment. So there is, you can say, many indicators of empowerment, but the core indicator of empowerment is income generation. So me as a woman, if my work is linked to market, then you see it as an empowered. So then women do work, everybody do work, right? We all do work, but which work is valued more is the work you do for your paid. Like when you do a work and that's paid, then that's more valuable. So women do work, lots of household work and all, that's still seen as unpaid work. And since it is unpaid work, it is not a valuable work, right? There is no value to it. So that's why a lot of literature or like many feminist movement actually kind of, spoke a bit more on how do we recognize this, recognize the work, what women are doing. So this is the basic in which most of the debates are happening. So now, why there is a less participation of women in paid work? We all know why, right? We all know why. But the problem is that we are still not able to kind of accept it and move forward, and what to do with that, right? So that's the big question we are all grappling with. So I would just want to talk a bit on the kind of two domains where choices and constraints. So one is like choice we can see, and constraints as external, choice is internal, right? So when I say internal, the choice which women make is mostly shaped by our social institutions, right? The family, the caste system we are in, the class we are born, or like the class system we are in. So this is how my choice is shaped. For all women, a choice is shaped. And there are certain external constraints we also kind of face. So what are we seeing is that women are agents and they are making good choices. So what I would say is they're making calculative choices. So within the given situation or within the given condition, what choice can I make? So me being not going to paid work is a better choice, because there is so much of constraints we give to women in such a way that, that is the choice, a calculative choice, a better choice in terms of many kind of dimensions. So two things I want to concentrate here is that the existing structure of family and marriage. Yes, I am going to the basics again, because lots of things which we talk about in the public sphere, right? In work, in workspaces, how do we create women's participation, many other places. But then I just want for us to rethink on the existing structure of family and marriage here. In general in India, and also it's not, Kerala as a society is not very different from that. So what shapes women's work choices? What we see is that n number of studies has pointed out saying that women's unpaid work, what they do, has a very direct connection to their paid work choices. So what kind of work they do, or what work I should actually kind of choose depends on the unpaid work what women do. So there is a direct linkage to their unpaid work and paid work, and that's very important as a society we need to understand. So the existing structure of the family, whatever we have, it is a very heterosexual, a man and a woman is kind of imagined. And you have a male breadwinner model, right? So that is what we have. This is the existing system. You see the market which is operating outside, any paid domain is all working under a male breadwinner model, 9 to 5 work. So if I am a woman and I have to go to work, I have to go fit into that male breadwinner model. And the family is also a male breadwinner model. So whatever I do in the workspace, there is not much of a consideration of what I do in my household as an unpaid work. So if I have to compete well in the market, I have to compete. So there are certain enabling gender sensitive aspects, yes, the state is trying to kind of do, but I think we have to move forward to a gender sensitive approach, to a gender responsive and gender transformative one. Okay, so what we see is that the unpaid work, a lack of data. So it will be very good when we argue women are putting a lot of time on their unpaid work. We don't know or we can't actually prove it, So there is a need for a data generation to kind of show when we argue, like there is a lot of time women spend within their home. So we say like childcare, like very simply we just kind of say childcare or domestic responsibilities. So there are 4 domains, right? What women actually spend a lot of time: care work, child and elderly care, domestic responsibility, cooking, washing. Where I want to kind of always mention, because cooking and washing is not just that kind of work. And for cooking, there is a lot of pre-cooking work. And after that, post cooking, and washing is not just vessels. There are multiple things women keep, and it's a very physically intensive work, time consumed work, monotonous work, drudgery work. Okay, I sweep today, I sweep the next day, I sweep the next day, I sweep the next day. It's the same kind of work women keep doing, and that's a lot, in terms of mental health and many other aspects. So the unpaid work what women do is very important, along with certain sustenance kind of work women do, a small kind of food processing, or to kind of, if you buy a coriander seed, you just don't buy the coriander seed to put in the box and keep it. Now and then you have to take it, dry it, keep it in the sun, maintenance work. Nothing is accounted for. Right? So much of unpaid work women do. So then what happens is that I am having a time poverty. Right? Everybody has 24 hours. So I put a lot of work already in unpaid work, and then I have to be a superstar in my paid work, which is not possible. And that's what's been reflecting in the society, what we see. So time poverty and dual responsibility is one thing, is a great challenge for any development in a society. So how are we going to address this is very crucial. So what we see is that this choice, and whatever then women make a choice in terms of paid work, it is a constrained choice. That is what women mark. So here in Kerala, one category is very crucial, is that there's a large number of women who is neither working nor seeking for work. Unemployed is something who are there and then they seek work. They are unemployed, but they are wanted to work, But we see here in Kerala, there is a growing number of neither, working nor seeking to work. That is a very worrisome in terms of any development indicator. That's one thing on unpaid work. The second thing is the existing arrangement of marriage. Many have spoken on dowry. Dowry as an issue, obviously, yes. Why do we pay dowry? What is the need for a woman when she gets married? And it's all in her life, it has been said, the married life is your family. Okay, whichever family you are born, no. But the temporary is for where we are born. But who we are going to get married is your permanent family. So we leave the birth family and go and get acquainted with the culture and everything about the other family. And for that, women are paying a huge dowry, which we know that's not, it's not a justice at all. But we continue to do in our society. So there is 2 lives for women. Okay, let's don't deny it, before and after marriage. So what happens after marriage? Before marriage we all know, but what after means happens after marriage is the kind of a crucial role which plays in kind of, women who seek work. Okay, my social network is gone. I get married and I go to a new place. I don't know anybody there. So I start with scratch. So we see lots of micro level studies which say, like how women want a job. For example, for a man, if they want to get a job, they get a job and then start a family around it. But for a woman, settle, have a family and get a job around the family requirement. So here itself we are like, like your job market prospects have been very reduced. So here also you see there is a lot of influence in terms of women's choice of work, where, your partner, your in-laws are all part of your choice in what we make. So for women then, paid work should be within the family or the place where the family means home is. Okay, so the new location, social network becomes a very crucial when you start a new life after marriage. So there is also another thing which we keep seeing is the higher the family income goes up, withdrawal of women from the workforce. Now they say, okay, we have good income, you don't need to go to work. So then what is the notion of paid work here? When we say it's an empowerment, when the income of the household goes up, you see the withdrawal. So that's a very clear pattern we have. So it means that again the family breadwinner model where you don't need to work if we have good income. So work, education and all is not seen as an independent entity for women, but depends on the family's requirement. So that's one thing which we need to kind of look into. What are the other options, within the existing constraint choice, how women choose? Yeah. So the first priority in our society is still a woman who is doing her domestic care work. Okay, if I go to paid work, that is plus. Okay, I do paid work, but that doesn't, change whatever I do as my unpaid work. So now again, so whatever I choose is an extra. So that is how it is. So then what kind of this extra paid work women seek for? It's a part-time work, I'm fine. It's a low wage, I'm fine. A flexible work where I can manage my household work well, childcare well, a good, in Tamil we would say nalla pombala. Nalla manaivi, nalla thai, that is the priority. And you for a good, paid work, well and good. Right? So that is how it is. So they seek for these kinds of work, and that's what we see, the large increase in informal sector women, work in there. So that's how. So men actively seek jobs, set up a family around the work, but for women anchors paid work based on the family requirement. So then if this is the constraint or this is the given situation I work, then let me come to the private domain. So then if I seek any kind of work, what kind of options do I have? Here we see women are educated, but what kind of options I have? Even with the informal sector or kind of a low wage work, the opportunities are very skewed, like for example, imagine construction sector, where women could work. So imagine the domain of drivers. Okay, so you see even we seek the opportunity out there is also very much gender discriminatory or gender biased work structure. So that's what it is. And one last thing which I want to also talk about it, what education means to us. So we see higher women's enrollment in higher education, but then is education seen as an independent entity? So we say we educate women because she can teach her children. Okay, so we see education, like in India, there is a studies which saying, higher the women go to colleges, but we don't see it in paid work. So what is this happening? What is this education helping us? It's helping us as a very good prospects for a marriage. So that's the paradox. That's the answer to the paradox we are having. So we are seeing a higher education for women, but then paid work is less. But what is the answer? Marriage market. So that is where I think there are lots of concerns, which is, coming. So to wind up with, what I want to sum up is that women are already in a disadvantaged position in the labor market due to the existing marriage system and family responsibility. And then there is a huge penalty for child work in labor market. So if you are not a formal worker, if you are giving a childbirth, then you have to leave the job and enter into the job market again. So all your experience, everything is going. So time poverty and dual responsibility, enough of discussion has already happened, but then we're not able to have a change in the society. So a good start is to have a reduced cooking time, modern equipments, community kitchens, low cost food, food in the schools and colleges, both breakfast and lunch can be provided to reduce the burden of working women. Another thing I want to highlight here is the lack of aspiration due to lack of inspiration. So we have a lack of aspiration, like, because I'm not even seeking for a job. Okay, but I also see there is a lack of inspiration where I don't see gender parity in many invisible categories. So it's very important to visibilize in all spheres, socio-economic, cultural, political spheres, where women leadership, women is there, not just representation. It's a good start. Kerala's ensuring representation, but it's a good start. But representation is just a starting point. So creating access to opportunities taps the rightful capability to lead efficiency. That's very important. Until women are, kind of unburdened by their unpaid work, and the change in the existing family system and the change in the existing marriage and market system, the gender justice or the equality we are talking about will be on talks and not in reality. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Deepa. Now we are going to the Q&A session. I know that all are waiting with a lot of questions, comments, and suggestions. So we will have around 28 minutes for discussions. Please come forward. Reduce it, 25 minutes. Okay, now we have only 10 minutes for discussions. And please come with your questions, brief, and please try to avoid repetitions. Okay. Yeah, questions and not statements. That is what Secretary is suggesting. And please come. Oru mic undo. Mic. കിട്ടിയ
Thank you, my
സീരിക് ടീം ഒരു 2 മൈക്ക് കൂടി കൊടുക്കണം.
congrats for the organization. My question is to Dhanya. Yeah, thank you. My question is in relation to gender literacy. At the end of today's morning seminar on Vision 2031 Health, probably Health might come up with a health literacy campaign. What are your suggestions to have gender literacy for Kerala in the context of 2-3 specific areas? One, employment, as you said. Financial independence is not just income generation, right? The value of the person, the dignity. The next generation sees how the woman in the household takes care like that. That's employment. Even among the educated, that's one. Second, I think a role of religion, right? In every, you name the religion, right? How do you take care of that? As the recent Supreme Court verdict, Sabrimala issues, menstruation, women love that. And third is in the context of, marriage as an institution. What's the scope of revisiting marriage as an institution? Not just dowry. The woman getting married off and going to another family. My daughter recently said, has marriage come up with something like a Manishya Kadat, right? A 22-year-old. I mean, going to live with someone whom she doesn't know. How far should we reach that point where, marriage as an institution enables a woman to have a partner in life those days?
These are very complicated questions, and I don't even know if I am equipped enough to answer. But a couple of things.
Raise these issues because Dr. Sharmila, who is an alumnus of Trivandrum Medical College, happens to have now a pivotal position. She's the planning board member secretary. She's into health. She's into women and child department. Hope these gets translated into policy documents.
Yes. No, as far as the question of talking to children about religion or the boundaries of religion goes, I think policy cannot drive it anymore, because what we are seeing now is as government changes, policy changes. For example, in Kerala, the stories that we write from here are how the textbook is talking about gender neutrality, or textbook is talking about gender empowerment, when we are consistently reporting on how NCRT books are changed to whitewash certain incidents and then project others, right? So unfortunately, I think we are at a time when regimes change, education itself is changing. So I think we must look at education beyond just the textbooks, where we empower our teachers to make certain points in classrooms, but that also comes with a risk. I don't know if there's a proper solution for this.
Literacy, gender, I mean, health literacy means not. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So about gender literacy, like I said, yeah. Yeah. No, I think anything cannot be just done to one age group, which is what the problem is, right? Either we look at one age group or the other. But sensitization has to happen simultaneously for all age groups, which is if you're teaching a child a certain thing, their parents cannot be believing in a different idea altogether. So, how can we engage with all kinds of age groups in sensitizing different things, whether it's about gender, religion, etc.? I think that's what states need to look at, because as of now, every targeting is for a certain age group. I don't know if. Yeah.
I'm Dinta Suresh. I'm a research scholar, and thank you for all the wonderful presentations. And this is not specifically to one speaker. The question is, whenever we talk about health indicators, we proudly talk about maternal health indicators, which never talk about the other indicators like safe abortion access or contraceptive access. So how Kerala is addressing the unmet need for safe abortion and the contraceptive access within a gender justice framework? And we know that every day in the news there is relating to safe abortion, how it is denied in the health system, how the women are treated by the gynec and the obstetrician, and how this whole narrative will become more complicated on your vulnerability or how vulnerable you are. Second thing I like to ask Aksa, and I do follow you most of your posts, many of your activities online as well, and the recent work with Anand Ben sir, I forgot their NGO's name. So when we talk about gender justice vision, I know that most of these conversations are always within the binary. Abortion is within the binary, menstruation within the binary, all the reproductive conversations are within the binary. And how the state can move beyond the binary and make it, rather than making it into a cisgender centric understanding of sexual and reproductive health, and ensure that these services, including abortion, contraceptive care, and inclusive, accessible, and affirming for all genders. Thank you.
കൂടുതൽ ചോദ്യങ്ങളുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ പറയുക, അതൊരുമിച്ച് ഉള്ള ആൻസർ ചെയ്യാം, സമയക്കുറവുണ്ട്.
No, I don't have any questions. I have two observations that is already said in the panel. The first one is the policy making level and decision making level in Kerala, in higher positions, women are very low. It have to be changed once it is in 2031. The second one is the patrilocal system, which is an extension of patriarchy. After marriage, you have to go and live in husband's house. Still in 2026 also, we still follow that thing. It is not necessary. We are moving for new local systems. So, but still we have to have penine kettichu viduka, paranjayikka. These kind of terms are still there in our mindset. This have to be changed. Thank you.
But comments change. Now, even in the law in India, living together is recognized. It's not as if, and it's an interesting thing. Now, even under the law in India, living together is recognized. It's part of the Domestic Violence Act. Even the Uttarakhand Uniform Civil Code, which is very patriarchal and all, says you can live together. It recognizes, but what it does is it's put so many conditions that you have to go and register it. The registrar can ask you questions and so on and so forth. So what happened in Uttarakhand, strangely enough, was it's a very, very conservative society. But 42 couples applied to the registrar to get registered as couples, and only, of course, 12 got registered because there were questions. Maybe they were intercaste couples, maybe they were interfaith couples, so they didn't get registered. But I think we should recognize that there's a churning in the society, is all that I'm saying, and that there people are living together, and living together is something that has been discussed everywhere, including in the courts.
Just a brief comment to add to this, about the patriarchal system. I quite agree with Kirti that things are changing, and I think especially with urbanization, in another 10 years or 15 years, half the Indian population will be urbanized, and I think young people are very keen. I mean, this while I'm not saying patriarchal mindset has gone, it's very much there, and you can see it especially in aging and care. That once the parents are aging, then it becomes the duty again, mostly of the daughter-in-law or the daughter, to look after the elderly parents. So I think that thing hasn't happened. But I think on a day-to-day basis, there are a lot of educated young women, and I'm expecting that it's more in Kerala than in other places where they do have some agency, especially in terms of location of residence. I mean, a patri locality is the thing, but I think with urbanization, I think that's kind of shifting. So we need to look at some of these larger contextual shifts as well. So I think we need to recognize that change is happening, but I totally agree that we need support, to sustain this change. Yeah.
I wanted to actually make a point about something that you said, the surgeries that are done in Kerala also. There are lots of centers in Kerala which actually do this counseling, the therapy, which they're not supposed to do, and that's not been stopped. So that's something, the gender counseling, illegal therapy, which is being done across Kerala. I think about abortion, maybe you must have read in today's paper, there was an instance from Kozhikode, where a woman was not given the choice to abort. We had written a story 2 days ago from Hyderabad where an intervention was not allowed because she was unmarried. I think states have to think about policies where they keep unmarried women and others also in their in their viewpoint, because abortion is not something just, if you say women, it's not enough because hospitals are not allowing. And sometimes I think states try to impose morality and policy. For example, Tamil Nadu, a state which says it's liberal, progressive, Dravidian, etc., it has shadow banned oral emergency contraceptives for years. People across media have done investigations, stories, but you cannot get an emergency contraceptive in Tamil Nadu. You have to then look for that one medical shop. And despite all this, the state has never changed the policy. Sometimes I think morality gets transferred onto policy.
All the time. Not sometimes.
All the time.
So few questions, I am also a doctor, so some questions about health and also some questions about transgender people and beyond cisgender people. Is that initially, it was always believed that transgender people are divine people, wo Bhagwan hai, and they don't marry, they don't have sex for love, that they don't have kids, and therefore no abortion, no pregnancy, nothing is possible. And the doctors never thought that transgender people can also get pregnant or have kids. And things like abortion, menstruation, these were never thought of. So this was all an afterthought. In fact, when I was learning my medicine, and I'm sure it may be true for other doctors also, is that we were never told that transgender people are even normal people. It was all called as a mental illness. And that is something that we were told always. So forget about taking care of transgender people as our clients. But of course, times are changing, and we know that now we have ACT, etc. I want to tell you an instance of how there's still so much apathy. Justice Pardiwala, he recently said that menstruation health is a part of right to life. We all were very happy with that decision. A few months back, the same judge, Justice Pardiwala and Mahadevan, had set up a committee for transgender education and empowerment. But even they forgot that transgender men also menstruate. The menstruation in their judgment, if you see, is not gender neutral. It only talks about women, women, women. But we forget that transgender men also menstruate, and men's toilets do not have any facility for them to even change pads. So sometimes even at the highest level of judiciary, that sensitization is constantly needed. The same is true for doctors. I'm also in charge of the patient grievance committee, where we get complaints from patients, and 90% of the complaints come from labor room, where the women say that other women who are doctors and nurses are physically, emotionally abusing them, morally harassing them. How come you can have 3 children? You are increasing the population of the country. Especially if you happen to be an illiterate Muslim woman, then the taunt can be really severe. So we know that just because women are taking care of women in labor room does not make it a safe environment, and therefore that sensitization and empathy has to be in design. It has to be framed rather than assuming that if women are there in the labor room, then they will be sensitized for women. And I must also talk about certain recent laws that came in the assisted reproductive techniques, the Surrogacy Act, for example. They came just 4 years back, and they've all removed transgender people or people who are in relationship, which is in the nature of marriage but not married, and of course queer people from all benefits of course no adoption allowed. You cannot undergo surrogacy. You cannot even freeze your eggs and undergo IVF. So we are actually systematically excluding people, rather than including them. Even when we talk about abortion, it is extremely difficult for even cisgender people to, have abortion with dignity without being judged. Imagine the case for transgender men who go for, abortion. Or imagine the case when they are below 18 years. We didn't talk about POXO, but what we call as the Romeo Juliet cases, where adolescents fall in love with each other and they also get sexually active, that is severely punished. And currently it's an area that's of concern as children explore sexuality at even younger ages. How do we deal with that? Just 2 days back was Valentine's Day. And at some of the places in India, to go out on Valentine's Day with a person you love could mean that you may even get beaten up in parks. So this is the situation. So more conversations on adolescent romance, sexuality, reproductive health is needed, and it should not be shied away from, because this is the reality of our society.
One more question. One more.
Okay. The last.
Yeah. I wanted to ask to Deepa regarding the ASHA workers. Are they workers? That is my question. Because they are not accepted as workers and they are not paid as workers. So there I am not able to tell that they are workers. Another thing is ASHA's case. Many women are underwent difficulties, but then Asha came forward and she went ahead with the case and all that, but till today justice is not done. So in that case, the other women, those who are not that daring and happening very, very much affected by that, still justice is not done. So what you can work in future to encourage women to take action and get justice. Thank you.
No, I think calling them workers is a misnomer anyway. I mean, that's how the state, I don't mean Kerala state as such, but the state itself tries to convince us that they are workers. But in every possible way, they are not treated so, because they work on a salary plus incentive in a very strange way. That's why I said Kerala should revolutionize how we look at community health workers. And about Dr. Asha, because the seminar is about gender justice, I want to repeat that if Kerala could look at some sort of a policy wherein legal help is given to women who file complaints of sexual abuse or violence, and the biggest problem that they face is that the case is always the state versus the oppressed, the state versus the accused. It is never a person versus the accused. It's a state versus the accused. So the state is taking up the case on the person's behalf. Should the state not pay more attention to public prosecutors because they fight for our cases? So if Kerala can have some sort of a policy where public prosecutors are kept aside for gender violence, that would be helpful. No, but they appoint for every case as being fit.
I think many of these questions need more time to debate on because these are all very pertinent questions, and the government of Kerala is happy to have regular employment and higher wages for all the scheme workers, but we also remember that how much we are constrained in terms of our fiscal conditions and controls from different controlling mechanisms. So now I invite Dr. Sharmila Mary Joseph, IAS, the Principal Secretary to Women and Child Department, to sum up the discussions.
Good evening, everyone, esteemed panelists and distinguished delegates. We had a good discussion on development with gender justice. All the speakers spoke with conviction, spoke with clarity on where we stand as far as gender justice is concerned, and the areas that we can look at when we rewrite our policies or when we revisit our policies. So looking at what, or summing up what the speakers, the panelists had talked to us, Dr. Nitya in her presentation said that we are moving in the right direction as far as SDG goals are concerned, but yet we lag behind in certain areas. So one area of concern is female operated land holding, which has gone up to 22.8%, but is not, has not reached that 50% mark. And violence against women, yes, maybe because of increased reporting, because of increased awareness, but as concerns were raised by Deepa, Dhanya, that how the cases are handled in the judicial system, whether the prosecutors are adequately sensitized, whether the police personnel are adequately sensitized, how do we handle the case, how does media sensationalize certain cases. So, whole lot of players, whole lot of actors, and everyone in that chain, in that, long chain, needs to be adequately sensitized and adequately empowered as to how to deal with such cases. So empowerment and sensitization should start right from the home, right from the school. So we have done that, gender auditing of our textbooks, as Dr. Anandi mentioned in her presentation, right from our Anganwadi books. We have done that gender audit. So we do not have references like, mother cooks food for the family and father earns money for the family, which was there in our social studies book when we were students. When I was in class 1, I still remember the social studies textbook, had these lines and pictures. Mother cooks food for the family and father earns money for the family. When we were, children of parents who were both working, who were both earning money for the family. But that mindset we have now tried to change from our textbooks. So we have done gender audit of our Anganwadi books, the Angana Pumaras and the Angana Taimavagal, and also the school textbooks up to class 9 or 8. So we need to move to the textbooks of higher classes as well. Then what was mentioned was, regarding the issues of migrant workers, whether our adequate systems are in place to recognize or to address their issues. We do have, support mechanisms and special creches and Anganwadi centers for children of migrant workers, but as was mentioned, or as the speaker had apprehensions, yes, the reach would not have reached all areas where migrant workers do live. In many places, migrant workers, although we call them our guest workers, migrant laborers, we call them guest workers. We have, I am not quite sure whether we have reached every corner of the guest workers' concerns, or every corner of, or every aspect of guest workers' concerns. So maybe we have something more to do in that area, and we can give a policy note to, or policy suggestions to Department of Labor, who is handling this area. Then there was this question of, Madam also referred to the Kerala Migration Survey report of 2023, and how female migrants, more educated women, migrate to Europe and US, and how much are their earnings or investments, translating in their economic growth or their career growth. I do not know whether we have done enough studies on that, but maybe we can, planning board can also look deeper into that area. Then regarding the 3 R's and the address and the learn, yes, we are continuously learning what is happening in the rest of the world, continuously trying to address newer issues which are coming up, and trying to tweak our policies and our schemes in such a manner that these issues, the newer issues, also get addressed. In the next presentation, Dr. Anandi described where we stand as far as various statistical indicators are concerned. And I was also looking at the economic review while she was making the presentation, and the concern that some of us had about, the our reproductive rights, abortion, safe abortion services. So when we look at sterilization pattern also, the economic review, latest economic review gives that female sterilization rate in Kerala is 46.6%, while male sterilization rate is only 0.1%. And being a medical graduate, that a vasectomy is a so simple a procedure, and tubectomy is more, slightly more complicated. But at the end of the day, it is female sterilization which gets done more. Then regarding labor force participation rate, the labor force participation, female labor force participation rate is actually increasing. But if we actually measure the invisible work that is done at home, this rate should be much higher. So economists in the planning board, in the Niti Aayog and other ministries, economists should actually, come up with a detailed or a newer matrix to measure this invisible work, because the double work that women do. And the other day when I was reading a report on women in STEM, some reports mentioned about the triple burden, not just double burden, the triple burden that women in the scientific field face. So unless we have clear-cut indices or clear-cut matrix or a clear-cut formula to measure the invisible work, this time poverty would only get exaggerated and exacerbated. Then what was mentioned, regarding the gross enrollment ratio. I think who was mentioning that our gross enrollment ratio in higher education is 41.3%, and we are only 7th among Indian states. I think we are 3rd among Indian states. But when we look at the data, gross enrollment in higher education, In medical education, all fields of medical education, it is more than 80%. Arts and science colleges, it is more than 70%. Even in legal education, it is 80% and more. And in technical education, engineering colleges, it is 46%. And in polytechnics, it is 26%. So that is the only area where where men outnumber women. In every other sphere of higher education in Kerala, women outnumber men. So our Honorable WCD Minister, and the Higher Education Minister in their speeches during the Vision 2031 conclaves in October had mentioned how the system is responding by constructing new hostels for girls in the higher education sector. In medical colleges, in Trivandrum Medical College, there is only one congested ladies hostel, but there used to be 3 hostels for men. But even when we were students, 50% were girls. Now it is 80%. So the system is now responding by constructing more hostels for medical students, for engineering students, for other undergraduate students, for FI, UGP students, and other postgraduate students in the universities. Then regarding transgenders, yes, we have noted the points, but transgender is an area which is being handled by Social Justice Department, not by WCD. So the points that were mentioned, we would convey to the Social Justice Department and request them whether the existing transgender policy needs to be revisited to bring in required changes in tune with the changing requirements of the day. Anupama gave an outline about Kudumbashree, how Kudumbashree has shifted from a welfarist approach to a structural transformation, and how women's roles have changed and the Kudumbashree setup from a beneficiary status to active partners or active actors in the economic and political sphere. And she showed the statistics as to the number of women who have gone from the Harita Karma Sena system also to the local governments. So in fact, our local governments, many Kudumbashree women have earlier joined the local government system, successfully contested the local government elections, and now we have compiled the statistics of the Harita Karma Sena women also who have contested the local politics and entered the decision-making level at the local government level. However, as many speakers raised their concern, our representation of women in higher echelons of parliamentary democracy in the assembly as well as in the parliament is less. So maybe political parties would think about that and give more representation to women to contest the election so that their voices can be louder in the assembly as well as in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. I also wanted to mention about women in STEM. There is this issue of leaky pipeline syndrome also when we talk about women in STEM, women who get trained, who do research, who become scientists, but then post-marriage or post-childbirth, they are not able to pursue a career in research. So our state government has also come out with supportive schemes to encourage women scientists to pursue research, to go for high-end and deep tech kind of research, and then and then enable them to look for a structured career path in the research side as well. Then what were the other issues regarding data compilation, data aggregation, time poverty and invisible work? We need, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have newer matrices or newer formulae to actually assess and measure the work, the unpaid work that women do. Child care, elderly care, etc., etc. And the state government in this year's budget, the finance minister in this year's budget also placed an elderly budget in the state assembly along with the other budget documents. So at the policy level, at the highest decision making level, we have recognized that the elderly is, because we are a fast aging society, we need to give more attention to them. The state support, state attention is more state attention is required in that sector. So that is why we have termed it the silver economy, or for care economy we have termed it the silver economy. And we are considering how best to allot more resources for this sector. Then what were the other issues? Yeah, so laws for transgender, the Transgender Act is a Union Act. The Social Justice Department has to work on the rules that need to be, formulated. So we would share our thoughts with.
Myself, Shyama is Prabha.
Yeah.
Coming from Social Justice Department. We have a transgender cell there.
I know, yeah, and we have a scheme, Maravilla scheme.
I am the state project officer.
Okay.
And we have already taken steps to revise the existing policy of the state, and we drafted the policy and sent it to the government for approval.
Okay, so that is good. So whether the points that that the speakers mentioned have found a place in that?
We included.
We have already included.
Conducted,
Okay.
3 levels of consultations with the community leaders, existing community-based organizations, subject experts, and all. And we collected suggestions and we drafted the policy. And also, as mentioned in the 2019 Act, the state is already formed the state level protection cell and these district level protection cells also. And we are also, the government is ordered for complaints officers for different establishments in the state.
Okay, thank you. Madam, you had mentioned about, dowry, property rights, and what was the third one? One was transgender, dowry, property rights. Yeah. So dowry, yes, we have an act. We have officers.
Crimes, which is rising in Kerala.
Yeah, but
Recognize how it impacts on young couples.
yeah, so I think we need to do some more studies. Yeah. So there, I do not know whether we have really compiled detailed data and have analyzed the data to create a policy document. So maybe planning board can commission a few studies in that regard, or assign the responsibility to gender studies departments of universities to do a study on that. But nevertheless, we would give our suggestions for bringing in. Yeah, so that is one of the questions that came from the audience also. Dr. Indu asked about, the institution of marriage, whether it has to continue as an institution. So these are larger questions which cannot be answered in 10-minute summary. However,
Karnataka is passing a law, Tamil Nadu is passing a law on honor crimes.
okay, so we will have a discussion with Home Department and. Okay, so if you can share your inputs, if you can send us a small note. Okay, but anyway, since we have not passed that act, we need to. Yeah, if you can share the inputs, and then we will have consultation with the Home Department also, because part of it in the entire remit does not fall in our domain, so we need to have some wider consultations and 1 or 2 study reports through the planning board. So we'll work on that, and we would be happy to take suggestions and inputs from you when we work further on that. Then POCSO, as somebody mentioned, I think you only mentioned about POCSO, Romeo Juliet. Yeah. So POCSO, we also face this issue of large number of cases, but again we are working within the constraints of the act, constraints of law. So we cannot make a change overnight, but these concerns are very much with us also, and in the policy document suggestions, the concept notes that we are finalizing, these points would also be considered, would also be included, because when we are preparing the vision plan and the vision document for, say, Kerala at 75, definitely the newer issues would not be lost sight of. I think I would end there. Whatever suggestions the audience has, they can share with planning board, and because we have to finalize whatever has come till now in the evening, because we need to present it at the concluding session tomorrow. So thank you very much.
From as the moderator, I thank all the panelists. It's a very fruitful discussion, and I thank all the participants here. And for the formal vote of thanks, I invite Femina from Planning Board.
We wholeheartedly thank the Honorable Minister for Health, Srimati Veena George, and all the distinguished speakers, Professor Nitya Rao, Srimati Kirti Singh, Srimati TV Anupama IAS, Dr. Deepa E., Dr. T.K. Anandi, Dr. Aksa Sheikh, Srimati Danya Rajendran, and Professor Mini Sugumar. We also thank the respected Principal Secretary, Dr. Sharmila Mary Joseph, our respected guests, delegates, officials of the Women and Child Department, Kerala State Planning Board, CDIT, Kerala Public Relations Department, and management of this hotel. Thank you.
സെഷൻ അവസാനിച്ചു.